Meeting to order. Welcome all the guests that we have this evening. So the first thing on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Sorry, Judge, go ahead.
I still have problems with items being put in executive session when you have to get through meetings open.
Is there one in particular?
All of them. The information I currently have,
As I look at them, I know we might be talking about.
Specific things that should not be discussed.
well, we were told we'd have more than one option for the election. And it looks like we're just one option.
I know there's CMET. I don't
No,
know.
I'm talking about the company that to conduct the auction or not the election. My bad. But that's my issue and I'm just wondering.
Did not we approve that?
We approved the format. We didn't approve the company. I didn't believe. And if we did, I stand correct.
I know that 21 is specific to a particular member of sector. It's in executive session. Say it again.
It's specific to a member.
Can't read when I go on here, all I see is, I don't see the whole title. Is there a way to see the whole title on these?
It's on the agenda. So if you go to item 2 on the call.
Only attachment to,
Yeah.
there's only one attachment.
The October meeting, we approved the recommendations for the meeting. The first line item says SBS is the preferred election vendor. So I think it's been resolved.
And it was passed unanimously.
So I have a question about number 14. Can someone explain to me why that's on the agenda again? Discussed at the last 2 board meetings. We've had multiple emails concerning it. Is there still something that's unresolved that I'm aware of?
I know there have been some additional questions that have come forward. That I placed it on the agenda. I don't know if
After last month's meeting went very long. And the director sent an email out to the rest of us asking why the meetings haven't. This is a pretty good example, going over the same thing over and over and over again.
I don't think the answers were directly answered. The simple answers weren't answered on that, so that's why I forwarded that email to the board, just to get those 3 simple answers from that. And that was coming from members approaching me wanting that, not from me.
Would need to be handled at board time. Which maybe we would not need to handle during the board meeting.
I think the questions that were asked is legitimate.
Well, I think as far as following policy, when there are members that, we have a policy in place, but,
Policy.
With policy.
2.8, I believe.
I also believe Clay specifically asked as a director. And that information was not shared.
I'm fine with it.
I personally want a written document of what's all taken place, the timeframes is what I would request having a discussion. So I'm fine with removing it, but I want a documented timeframe of what took place when.
But I'm fine, whatever the board thinks, we can.
So through the conversations in the September and the October board meeting and all of the emails, the questions are still not answered, is that correct?
They're not answered yet.
Do we know specifically what those questions are?
That wasn't my email, and I specifically requested that and didn't get those answers, and the few members that I told them that we would get those simple answers at the board meeting after I talked to Steve. They just want simple answers.
So can we get the written response with simple answers?
And let me ask Clay, are those your questions as well, Clay, or were
I
there?
asked the questions in the email, what was this, and I still haven't, I haven't yet to get an answer on any of it.
Oh,
And I don't know what,
you have answers?
Yeah, it's prepared. That's why we put it on the agenda.
Okay.
way to save some time on the agenda. I don't know why we couldn't get the answers prior to this.
Because I think the way the emails were going and the demands that were being asked, it's a conversation and a discussion, not a simple answer.
Had the answers been given to the original questions, I think they would have been very simple.
But I think that needs to be discussed among the board with all of us in here.
Okay.
It's a discussion and you'll see why it's complicated when we go through it. But I'm prepared to answer everything.
Okay.
That's why we put it on the agenda.
So I mean, again, it's up to the board whether we leave it on there or not, but,
I still want a written response.
well, we can talk through that with that discussion that we have. If the questions are answered. Any other suggested changes? Any motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
As is, correct.
As it.
Okay.
Second.
Dale, second. Suzanne. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same? Aye.
Make it two. I also oppose.
All right, Brad, take a minute for a moment.
All right, so for the cool moment, we were awarded, actually we had Federated in 2 weeks ago and Pat gave me the award, it's up here on the screen. So we've got no lost time accidents award for 2021. And if you can read, I know it's pretty small up there. In recognition of its management and employees for their outstanding achievement of an accident-free record of 344,058 employee hours since July 18th of 2015. So I thought that was kind of cool. The rep that came in said out of the, I think, 8 co-ops that he supports, we were the second one we were of 2 that were getting the award. So focus around our safety committee and safety here for our employees is important to us. And I think it's nice to celebrate when we get an achievement like this. So I thought that was a cool moment. Second cool moment was we had a lunch and listen with the leadership team. So my staff and myself at Midtown Diner. We had quite a few participants, had some pretty awesome discussions. So thought that was kind of a cool moment also. As far as safety minute, we did some email blasts and some things around this. And again, it's just, safety for not just employees and board members, but also for our members. So just remembering to, when you pull your cord, I have a hard time doing this one with my sweeper, right? But when you're pulling your cord, make sure that you pull it from the plug-in and not the actual cord, because you could damage it, as you see in the picture on the right there. And obviously expose yourself to electrical shock. That's it.
All right, next on the agenda, we have a IEC representative, Ally Jones, is going to share with us some EGRA for. Hi, Ally. Ally, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Well, thanks, Brett. Thank you all for having me out tonight. I appreciate you letting me join you, at least virtually. It's great to be with all of you. I want to share a little bit, as you mentioned, about the Foreign Anchor programs and the different ways that you can support the government relations effort at IEC. I also want to chat a bit about why that's important and some of the legislative issues, because I think that really provides the context needed when you participate in these programs. So feel free to stop me, ask any questions. It might be a few seconds delayed since we're virtual, but I want to make sure that I address any questions that you have and make this as much of a discussion as you'd like it to be. So yeah, as I mentioned, I want to start off by just talking a little bit about what we're working on and what's going on that we expect to see this legislative session, because that sets the stage for why 4 and Acre are so important. So this year, we fully expect it to be a very busy legislative session. It is a long session, so we'll be going from January until the end of April. They will be doing a budget this year. And we anticipate a lot of electric energy issues, specifically because the 21st Century Energy Task Force is concluding, well, they have concluded this last month, and they have 2 years worth of findings that the committee is going to recommend for the legislature in some form or fashion to adopt. And essentially, in their words, and Wabash related policy, but as you know, those kinds of things down and affect the distribution co-ops and affect the members that we all serve in the communities that we are working for. So we are really engaged in those policies. One specific bill is around the UCAP percentages. So that is the amount of energy that the generation entity, so Hoosier in your case, is responsible for outside of short-term contracts. So it has to be energy that they are responsible for either through their own generation means or through a long-term contract. And currently, by law in Indiana, you have to have 70% of your energy in those two categories. However, as coming out of the 21st Century Energy Task Force, they're looking to drop that number, to raise that number to about 85%. So putting more of a burden on the generation utility to own more generation assets or to have more long-term generation contracts so that there's less of the energy you're buying from a short-term market. The goal, of course, is to increase reliability and hopefully stabilize affordability as well. There is some concern from the GNTs on just how quick they're looking to do those changes. Of course, we want to make sure that everything we do, every policy we have ensures reliability and affordability for our members. But going from that 70% to that 85% in a very short period of time doesn't allow the utilities a lot of room to make that transition, to invest wisely and to choose smart contracts or smart assets to invest in. And we want to make sure that, we continue to make the best decision for the members. So we're engaged with the GNTs, engaging all of the CEOs and, the distribution force as well. And we heavily monitoring that issue this session and trying to stay engaged in what they're looking to do on the generation side of things. In addition, that task force will also likely make some different transmission suggestions for legislation. We don't see too many issues around there, so we're not going to spend too much time on that tonight. Another big issue this year is going to be on battery storage. Again, that's something most at the GNT level, but I know some co-ops are also getting into it on the distribution side as part of the assets that the distribution co-op is allowed to hold. And there have been some concerns around the legislators of seeing some of the horror stories from out in California of battery storage gone wrong, fires, things like that. And they just want to increase some safety precautions around those projects. We're always about safety. We want to make sure we protect our communities, but we also know that battery storage is a really important asset as we're looking to transition and include more renewable energy sources into the portfolio. So the way we're approaching that is we want to encourage safety, number one, but we also need to make sure we're setting up Indiana as a great place for economic development and investment in those projects because we know they're going to be essential to our portfolios moving forward. Couple other things, I'm sure we're going to see some EV legislation again this year. There's always different stuff around that, continuing to protect the utilities service territories. There has been a fairly big push to allow anyone who builds an EV charging station to be able to purchase their power from whatever utility they want to. So if they locate in your service territory in Decatur, they might be able to go down the road and get Duke to serve that charging station, or they're go up the road and they get a wind farm or a solar farm to serve that charging station. And we obviously don't want to let that happen. We fought that off last year. We expect to have to fight that off again this year. And we want to make sure we continually protect utility service territories. So that's what we'll be working on in that regard. There'll be some other things coming down the pipeline. And just in terms of setting up grant programs, we don't anticipate to see broadband stuff this year because it's going to be 2024 before we're seeing the broadband money from the federal government. So they don't want to look at that this year, but there'll probably be some things around the grid resiliency grant programs and potentially the EV grant programs. So our place in that is just making sure that however it is set up, it's set up in a way that the co-ops who want to participate in those programs have the best chance for success, winning those grant dollars and supporting their communities. So that's what our involvement there looks like. Do you guys have any questions for me about the session stuff before I talk a little bit more about 4 Acre? Okay. All right, awesome. Well, yeah, so 4 Acre, I know you guys are, especially those of you who've been on the board for a while, you're aware of what it is, but it is a vital part of what we do as our government relations staff at Indiana Statewide and supporting the local co-ops. It's one of the best ways that you can be involved in our mission, which is really to advance your mission and to better serve the communities that we all represent. And any dollar that you contribute to either 4 Acre goes directly to the candidates from your service territory and from around the state who support the work we do as electric cooperatives to provide safe, reliable, affordable energy and to improve the rural communities around our state. That's what we emphasize, that's what we look at, and that's really what the focus is of both of those programs. The 4 program is our state PAC, so that looks specifically at the local state legislators. And I think that that is really an important mission because the state legislators are not full-time politicians. These are people with full-time jobs, full-time careers who take 3 to 4 months out of their lives to go to Indianapolis and try to better our state. And they need all the support they can because running effective political campaigns is really costly. And we want to make sure that we get good people into office who support what we do and that we also keep them there if they are a quality person who supports our mission. So it's really important. It makes a big difference, especially on the state side, when these are regular folks just like us who don't have the kind of funding to really run a political campaign without help from organizations like ours. The Acre PAC is the federal PAC. It's run through NRECA. But any dollar contributed by Indiana only goes to support Indiana legislators. So even though it's an NRECA run PAC, it does not support anyone from outside of Indiana. Our money stays within Indiana, and I think that's a really important distinction. You also may be wondering, well, who decides who gets what money and what's the oversight look like? And that's a great question. We always want to make sure there's oversight. So both of those PACs have committees that oversee any contribution to any legislator. So both of them have a 4 committee and an Acre committee made up of directors just like you from across the state. And we make recommendations to them of who we think deserves what funding based on their support of the co-op mission. Again, safe, reliable, affordable energy, supporting rural communities, etc. But ultimately the directors and CEOs, they vote on what they want that distribution to look like and who they choose that we should support. So you can make sure that your money is going only to people who support what we do, and there's definitely oversight there, making sure of it. So yeah, we thank you for your continued contributions. There are 2 very important programs. It's one of the best ways to have the co-op voice heard, making sure we have people in office who know who we are and what we do and why it's important, and they feel the same way. And it's really great. So thank you guys for your continued contribution. If you don't contribute, we appreciate you at least considering it. Every dollar matters. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Hey, Allie, when's the last day you need? So everyone has a form in front of them. When's the last day that we can make our this year's contributions?
Yeah, so we have to have all funding deposited by the end of the calendar year, so December 31st. Now, obviously, I would need the money a little bit in advance of that so that we can do the reconciliation on our side and make sure that the bank has it and gets it deposited before the 31st. And something to keep in mind is we have to mail the acre checks to Washington, D.C. for them to deposit. So you need to allow about a week's time frame for all of that.
So are you thinking,
And I will say, I was just going to say too, just so you guys know, we do 3 different kinds of awards at our annual meeting, recognizing co-ops that give, which I believe you already have, a corporate contribution to 4. We recognize all co-ops that achieve 100% participation, which is the full board. So every director, the CEO, and all key staff members contributing at least $25 to each PAC. And then we also recognize anyone who chooses to give at the major donor level, which would be $125 to 4 and $500 to acre, just so you know.
is it fair to say then we should probably target having this sent out by the end of this week?
Yeah, end of this week, early next week would be great. If you do decide to contribute, Brett, feel free to shoot me an email with what everyone is doing, and I will go ahead and make sure you guys are listed and can get properly recognized for awards at annual meeting. So we can take care of that a little quicker, but definitely would need the checks by next week. Would be great.
Sounds good. Anybody have any additional questions for Ally? Ally, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks guys, appreciate it.
Thanks, Ally.
All right, so we'll follow up if should we go through you then, Brad?
You guys have the form in front of you. I mean, if you want us to send it, we can.
Okay.
Wise, you can send it to, it's up to you.
Okay.
Definitely give me a heads up though, because they will be publishing all the information for the annual meeting,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Do you have a preference? Do you want it to come to you or do you?
As long as you let me
As
know,
long
it
as
doesn't
you-
matter.
Make him aware right now. Okay. Go ahead and go. Direction. Let's go to the next item. MSR replacement budget ask. Crystal, I think you're up.
So I had sent out an email, early November, I think it was, letting everybody know that we had some really good candidates that we had interviewed, kind of some opportunities that we have. We still have those. We did actually, our new employee started today. Today was her first day, so really excited to have her on board. But we do have the retirement, which is kind of what we backfilled for. I know it's probably been 3 years now that we talked about going down to 1 MSR and then potentially like a part-time for the busy times of the month. And I'm pretty sure that was when we implemented the IVR system, I think, is when we had that discussion. Obviously, the dynamics of this department has changed drastically from 3 years ago. You know, we are losing 2 seasoned MSRs from that area, plus me being the manager of that department. So you really have 3 very long-standing employees that are going to be exiting, and you're going to be bringing in 1 full-time. Not to say that she's not going to be great, but she just doesn't know. You know, she's brand new to this industry and she's brand new to this department. So I don't think that it's very fair to abandon that person and have them all by themselves in literally a month or 2 months and deter the other person that's supposed to be moving to a new position. I mean, she's never going to be able to transition to that new role. I mean, a long time before we can get this other MSR up and trained. So I asked the girls to come today so that they could help kind of let you guys understand exactly what their days are like and flow and how they feel like this is very needed, because I'm not the person that sits up there. So I can sit here and tell you all day what I think it is like, but I'm not the one that's up there doing it every day. So we can kind of have, I guess, a discussion on kind of what everybody's thoughts are. Our girls would like to chime in. We're just here to make sure everybody understands what moving forward what the impact is gonna be if we decide that this is what we're only gonna replace the one and not anymore. I just think that that's gonna be a very, very bad decision.
Crystal, in your email, you mentioned two very viable candidates. One of those two you have hired and has started.
Yep, she started today.
Which position, can you relate that to us?
She was
Our position or your position?
MSR position.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah, it's MSR.
She was the successor
Yes.
Gotcha.
or succession plan hired.
Okay. And both of the candidates, from what you said here, have experience in building disconnects, so they're somewhat familiar with the industry.
Not the co-op industry, but just in their own industries that they came from. They did billing and they did disconnects.
Customer
So
service.
customer service, but they know the process, they know, and it's really not much different from,
What's the availability of the second candidate? Is it a 2-week notice? Is it a month? Is it immediate? Is it?
it's a 2-week notice if we decide to move forward before the beginning of the year. But the conversation that we had with her was, at this point, the position we had open has been filled, but there is the potential for another position January 1. Because I didn't want to make any, guarantees that it was even going to be an option. And she has said that's great. She's willing to hold out until then. It's not, she has a job. It's not like she is unemployed. So, if we make the decision, then we could get her January 1. No problem.
Brett, do you have the most recent organizational chart that you could pull up for us, just for my knowledge, to kind of see who's going where still? Because I'm still putting that marketing staff, that's still not being replaced, right?
Correct. So
So that's the big key, that we're not replacing that position. The succession for Ms. Becky's already been hired. This is just an addition to.
yeah, because we took that role and we combined it into 2 existing roles.
And that's one of the other big deals about this is not only did we essentially combined it, Crystal's department with what our old communication was doing. So all of the tasks that person was doing is now within her department. So now you've got 2 new people. If you go to,
Time in the dashboard.
yeah, first item in that dashboard, I think is the most.
Oh, thank you. I didn't have it all the way up there.
The only thing I think it looks different, and I probably should update is that open position is now filled. And it was next to the first member service on it.
Crystal, is this going to be part of the 23 budget ask anyway? You're just doing it early, basically.
Yeah.
So you can get things rolling.
Yes.
And had it been in the 23 budget, Crystal, were your plans immediately in 23 to fill it?
Yes.
So we're talking about accelerating it 6 weeks, a month, some.
Yeah.
Whatever.
By the time,
Now,
by the time
By the time
somebody
you-
the notice, it's really 2 weeks.
For acceptance notice.
Suzanne, back to your question though, where it says the open one. So we've gone through the in-person hiring process for that. But as you see there, it says communication. We hired this position as someone to fill both of those manager roles.
And we are down to the final candidates on that one, so.
So in the past year, we've added project manager and operations admin in this
Correct.
past year.
Correct.
Added,
Yes.
Correct.
not refilling marketing.
Correct.
We have a time frame for the vacancy up front.
January 1st. Which is coming fast.
Any comments?
Without specifics, rates of pay from previous to, somewhat similar, less, significant?
Even we haven't negotiated the managing position, but
It would still be less.
yeah, it's going to be less.
So this question is for you two. Since you guys have been manning that, there was mention of a potential for a part-time position maybe down the road after everybody gets settled. So from your perspective, is that manageable up front with a part-time, one full-time and one part-time?
I myself don't think so. I mean, almost 24 years here. I've seen too many times where you think the day is going to be one way or the other, slow, and then it's busy, or if you anticipate it to be busy and bring in that other person, then it's not. I just feel like having that second person there is just a good thing. Trying to juggle, staggering our lunch times. And if you have a person out or a couple people out, maybe one planned and one not, if somebody gets sick. I'll just tell you an example because I keep remembering this, but just a few weeks ago, Krista was out and Jenny was out. So that left Abby, Amy, and myself. And at one time, I had 2 people filling out membership applications, somebody else filling out a capital credit air form, 2 other people standing behind them waiting, somebody at the drive-up window, and then the phone rang. And it's just, that's kind of a few and far between thing, but it does happen. And I think when the member walks in the door and sees that we're already kind of bombarded, for them to have to hang back, and they're patient and they wait, and we thank them for waiting. But I just feel like that two people team makes it look a lot better, and we're able to take care of the member a little bit better, and even better when the outage phone calls come in, instead of us having to, having us not be able to answer the phone. And then they roll to CRC, which is fine that it does, but so many people during business hours, they're glad that they get us. Is this the office in Greensburg? Yes, it is. Instead of, oh, okay, well, I thought maybe I got the answering service. They prefer to talk to the people that they know in the office. So for me, I think 2 people full-time, it just works.
Becky, you said 24 years for you.
It'll be 24 in February.
How many for you? Crystal?
16.
Okay, so we're
A lot of years.
46 years.
Now, the good news is they're staying in.
Right, I understand, but in that department, you're losing 40 to 45 years of experience.
And I also feel that since we didn't replace the marketing person, and a lot of that role has been taken over by Abby, a lot of the different things there. I feel like for us to be shorthanded up front and depend on Abby and Amy to come up and help us, that takes them away from doing their job. And so, it just makes it easier when everybody can stay doing their own tasks.
And what's the timing of your transition, Jenny?
What time is my transition?
I don't know.
The idea was January 1. And again, if we push this out, she's working with a new person now. So while we have Becky, it'd make a lot more sense from a training standpoint. There's a lot to learn. I mean, our systems they always tell me it's not so hard, but every time I try to get in the system, it is.
They don't make you in there, just you do it.
Yeah.
Don't go in there.
It takes time to learn the system.
Somebody with 24 years experience to train you would be gold.
Yeah.
I mean, I know 5, 6, 7, 10 sounds a lot, but 24 years experience would be gold to have somebody in before Becky exit to the paradise world.
We just thought too, like training them both at the same time is much easier than training one and then in 5, 6 weeks, I'm gonna train the other one, kind of just starting all over again.
Well, again, and I don't want to overlook the fact that you've already hired one candidate, you've got another candidate you feel very good about. Because in any industry right now, finding candidates, period,
Right.
is very difficult.
Right.
Finding good candidates is dang near impossible.
But that's what Jeannie and I said when we were going through.
Wow.
But didn't you say previously you had several candidates for
We did, so we
a lot
had
of candidates?
147 applicants. And then we interviewed 18 by phone, and then we did 10 or 15 in person. And we came down to like a top 5. And we had 3 really good candidates, but unfortunately, one of them already accepted another position. So they let us know that they went ahead and took a different role within their company because they got a promotion, probably because they heard they were looking to leave and they said, oh no, we're gonna keep you.
That's been a good one.
Yeah, so we're like, well, okay, but we thought you really good. Question?
Any questions?
In light of the circumstances all encompassing with Becky being around, I make the motion to hire the second MSR as requested.
First, second. We have a second. Any additional discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
Carl, did you abstain?
Yeah. Jeff, were you opposed?
Yes.
That's the same. Abstaining. Been approved.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next topic is discussing kind of a carryover of what we talked about in October, so maybe resending a couple of rate tariffs. And then I believe the solar action item is a deliverable from an action item, Jeff.
But I'd also requested that John Olstrom present the rates.
We can probably get him another time.
Yeah.
So, but I think we can still go ahead and send him there.
So when we moved the board meeting date, he didn't realize that we were moving it to Monday and he already had a prior.
So you're rescinding the other two tariffs? Is that what this vote is for?
Yes.
So then I need to leave the room. That affects me.
No, this is just interruptible and LCP.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not voting on solar.
No.
That was just an action item.
That makes sense, Jeff?
Yes, but I was just, if it was, then I needed to leave.
Do you want me to go through the memos just a little bit?
You can. Oh, yeah, because I think you sent an email or a text.
Text, and I apologize.
I
We
haven't
just-
even updated.
We didn't get
I
the
haven't
information.
either, so I don't know what it is.
Yeah, if you redo it, I'll just go over it so you guys kind of know what you're looking at here. And then again, I don't know that you need to make the decision soon, but I don't think it has to necessarily be.
I mean, if we can have the decision by January, that way we can give time to communicate to the members that we need to.
Go trying to hit that April.
Yeah,
Right.
April 1st is when things will change, so.
So the first one on there is that interruptible. So there's two interruptible rates. There's one that's an industrial interruptible. There's nobody on it. And then there's another interruptible that was a carryover from years and years ago that we do have one person on. And then, so you see the memo there with who that is. And so the whole idea, I know Jason can probably explain this a little bit too, but the whole idea of getting rid of so essentially come April 1st, Hoosier's no longer offering this interruptible. What they're doing is that they uncoupled it from the wholesale rates and they created what they're calling this CMPM, which is an LMR program. So essentially the LMR program is it's a member contract. And the idea is you have to be a certain size to qualify for this, but if you can cut your load, you got two timeframes. One is 2 hours and the other one's 4 hours. Then you will be compensated for being able to do that. They will register you through MISO. You'll be a MISO emergency capacity play essentially, right? So the way that we've talked to this member is, yeah, your bill is going to go up by this amount, but it unlocks potential savings that are more than that if that's the route you go.
Does everyone understand what LMR stands for?
Expand on that.
It's a load modifying resource. So you're registering that with MISO as a load. You can shed enough load to make a difference. That's what That's what a load modifying resource is.
So they create capacity on the system.
Yes.
Correct. It's no different than a generator. But they have to be big loads too. These can't be.
I cannot plug.
And they have to be willing and able to shed
Correct.
costs.
They actually have to prove through the MISO. They have to send data that shows that they can actually do it. And then there's a contract and there's penalties, obviously, if they don't. So that's what we've offered up to them. Honestly, we've already somewhat, I mean, we didn't blanket say, that you guys have rescinded this, but we've given them a heads up that it's no longer included in the wholesale rate tariff. So therefore, be hard pressed to keep that tariff going. So that's the first one. It's interruptible. It's one member, but there's two tariffs. So one tariff has nobody on it, only qualifies for industrial loads. And then the second tariff, which is the old grandfathered one, which is the one we're talking about. The second memo, which is the LCP to LP. So what we talked about was same thing with these guys on LCP. There is no load control type events that are essentially, where we call them and say, okay, you need to drop your load, and they pay quite a bit for demand if they keep that load up. But if they drop the load, they get a pretty low demand. So again, because of the uncoupling, it's going to be hard for us to do this. Now,
Hooters no longer gonna call load control, but we can't really even.
they'll call load control, but the problem is they're going to do it based upon estimates from the MISO market, because the wholesale tariff is now on the MISO peak. MISO doesn't tell you what the peak was until after the month. So they're going to use ACES and estimate what it is, and they are going to still make phone calls because there are load control devices out there. But it's not coupled to the bill, right? So in other words, the rate tariff makes no sense at this point. So you can see there, as an entire class, it's a big change. It's a big difference if you take them from LCP and force them into LP. And then we broke it out by, now the other thing to note here is these are all, so today we call them and say, 24 hours advance, Crystal's texting them, calling, saying you need to drop your load by this time. And then they react to that. So we don't have meter data because all their meter data is based upon us calling them and telling them to drop their load. So you have to estimate, well, what would that load be at max if we never made the phone call? That assumption is baked into these numbers. Now, I think in general, they're going to be pretty close, but you have to estimate because there's no way for me to tell you if what these members' peak's going to be if we don't call for load control. Does that make sense? So they're used to getting now it's close.
It's gonna be fairly close.
Yeah. Because they still have we still do meter data on a 15-minute demand. So we know.
Are they always shedding load every time you call?
Yes.
Pretty good.
In fact, 3 of them shut down. Now they still have some ancillary stuff going.
Right.
But it's only for 2 hours, 2 hours at a time, where this MISO is asking for 4 hours
Right.
with a 2-hour or a 4-hour notice.
Yeah, you can do 2 or 4, can't you?
But it's for 4 hours at a time, where that's a huge difference when you're trying to run a business and you're asking someone to shut down for 4 hours at any given time of the day, any day of the week. I mean, I think that's a lot different than, I'm gonna tell you 24 hours in advance, you need to be turned off by 9 AM. Okay, no problem. Well, I'm gonna call you in 2 hours. I need you to shut your load completely for 4 hours.
Right.
But that's exactly why they got rid of that's why Hoosier got rid of the old method, because you had folks like some of the folks we have on here that really aren't interrupted really is 2 to 4 hour shutdown, because that's what MISO calls emergency capacity, right? And so a 24-hour notice isn't really interruptible. And that's another reason that they're uncoupling this from their wholesale rates.
Well, and LMRs are up to 16 times a year,
Correct.
where right now we're doing maybe 6 on the load control.
Yeah.
So this is a big difference.
So is there a plan B for these folks?
That's for you guys.
Obviously, LMR is not gonna work.
I mean, well, we can give that option though. So I did talk to Michelle today from Hoosier and I'm gonna get them all the data and they're gonna run it through the LMR program and see what the potential savings could be. So there can be the option of, yeah, we're getting rid of this, but we have this option. Are you able
Yeah.
to adhere to these requirements compared to what you are? Because then you're at least giving them an option.
So they can offset.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
That's why it's probably not such a big deal on the top one, right? Because they are being offered something and they could actually save more.
What do
But with the size of their,
Don't they offer multiple rates within their commercial rates for large demand or high demand, small demand?
I feel like co-op north of us has one of these plants on their service, and I think that they're just on a large power.
Nope, no one else has LCP. There was one other one. And I think years ago, they got rid of it because it wasn't a true.
Well, I mean, really, the way Hoosier explained it was, we've kind of been subsidizing these people for years. Because it was a great idea 10 years ago when they thought of this program, like, oh, this is gonna be so good, let's load control people and hopefully they can save money. When ultimately they found out that they weren't even saving money because the peaks were never really on the peaks that we called. So they were shutting down, but then the peaks were happening after they ramped back up. So then there was no savings in money. So really, what was the point in doing that? So now we've got to kind of revert back to, like we say all the time, like we make decisions today, but in 10 years, we realized they were dumb decisions. This is kind of one of those, you know, it was a great idea at the time, thinking that we could have someone save money, but in the end, we caused other members had to actually pay for that. Because the peaks weren't being avoided.
But so for your plan B, I would suggest you wait until you hear from we hear from these LMRs.
I think that that's the idea.
Because now then you're gonna sit down with these members and you're gonna say, okay, look, we're covered, just like we did with the industrial internet. Our wholesale supplier has uncoupled this, here's why. You still have the opportunity. Who knows, they may be able to save more. I don't know.
And they may want to do it, it's just,
I doubt it's gonna be more though, because if you look at the cost of service, they're already low.
So is the board okay with delaying this until maybe December if
yeah.
with something?
Yeah, and I should probably
No
in a
more
couple
definitive
weeks,
plan yet.
yeah,
So-
once I get the
You
data.
said you said by January. so
January, yeah.
If we still do it at maybe December.
If you want to.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Is the board okay with that?
I'll look at it. I can read the research. Thanks. Appreciate that.
All right, any other discussion based upon? So we'll go ahead and delay this until at least, we'll probably have it in December, as long as we, heard back. Okay. So we'll go to the next item for your information. Got questions?
Better, Matt. 2 items on American Express. CAPM certification. Annual subscription, Zoho Corporation represents 45% of the total expenditures. Page 3.
Page 3.
CAPM is the project management course.
Yeah.
And then the bottom of that page, annual subscription, Zoho.
So, what do you know?
I don't know that one.
Zoho Corporation.
Sounds like an IT thing.
Yes.
They always have weird, names.
Acronyms.
I don't know off the top of my head. But we can get you an answer.
Is there any way we can get a list of numbers? What number correlates with the employee?
Say that again.
There's numbers on here, for instance, on page 2.
You on check register or AM?
I'm sorry, no, American Express.
Okay.
I'm seeing different numbers for
Like, is it like 55 or
7, 55, 60, 40.
that's the employee number?
Yeah, is there a way to get, so you know who's who?
I don't know if that's, and then you would know who that employee is.
So,
Is that relevant?
yes and no. I mean, only because then I know who is, who went where and did what, that's all.
I would say if you have questions about any of this stuff that ask the question, I don't know that it matters who it is. He has my expense reports, so anything that's on mine is gonna go through him.
I'm trying,
Then I approve all my manager's expense reports and the AX bill.
Mr. Answer's no.
here, I'm looking at page 2 where there's 4 hotels. Trying to figure, 2 of them got the same cost and then 2 of them, and each are.
Because one probably paid for parking, possibly, I'm just giving you some reasons. One may have paid for parking, but these are all budgeted items. I mean, if it's in here,
There's no some theme, that's all.
typically it's something to do with parking, honestly. I know just for a fact, when we went to, the Heat's graduation, mine was more expensive because I had parking. What are you talking about? But some of these other numbers aren't. The fuel ones, that's like the vehicle.
What other questions do we have from Fleet?
Ask the check register.
No, I did not. Couple, check register. Page 3. Good. Special equipment.
You mean transformers? US is transformers almost always.
Okay,
Bottom of page 2, pay to
I
the,
can't swear that that's every single one of them. That's typically what that is.
okay, so. You go from equipment or material to special material or special equipment, that's what it is.
The special equipment is typically transformer
Okay.
from US.
Did you have a question?
bottom of page 2, payment to our vendor for cost of service study. That's just a progress payment, I presume.
Right.
Page 10. Sunbelt,
That's transformer.
okay, that's
Big.
big. I think a rental, Sunbelt rental, so I didn't know if this was the.
Nope, that's a big transformer
That's true.
and one small one too, but the bulk of money is big. 2075.
Guys, on page 13 and 14 and 4 to 26. 98 in full replacements, is that what I've come up with?
The contractor pole replacement, yeah, that'd be less.
But then on, or did you say 17?
13 and, it combines 13 and 14 and then 24 to 26. Those pages.
So is the pole replacement bid work or is it time and material?
It's, pole replacements are, it's not time and material. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's, yeah, it's
They got a chart that shows what each and every unit's gonna cost. It's a, I even have.
It's assembly units, done through assembly units. Best way to do it. Essentially.
Say bid.
It's called assembly units. So in other words, what you do is at the beginning of a construction work plan or a work like pole replacements, you send out various designs and say, okay, here's, I'm just making these numbers up, but 15 poles that we want you to replace. And what they do is they come back and say, so an A1 has certain assembly units. An A1 would be like a single phase pole, has certain assembly units that have material and labor associated with it, right? So you send that out to 5 different companies and they're going to come back and say, for these assembly units, here's what my bid is. And the reason you do it that way is because we're almost like a job shop. Every pole is a little different when it comes to the assembly units itself. So if you send out, time and material can get kind of expensive, right? Assembly units is the best way to do bid work in our industry. I don't know if I'm explaining it very good, but
Page 17, power systems.
yeah, that's our contract. So we always refer to PS.
And page 14, titled unit utility material.
Page 14. I did supply materials.
Utilities.
It's something we bought, I don't know, do we know exactly? We'd have to search. Could be poles, could be transformer, could be transfer. Could be under special material.
Be special. But
What else? Anything else from,
For your information, anyone?
like, did you get all questions?
I took 2 action items, so we'll figure out
Zoho.
Zoho and then the United Utility Supply. Yep, I got it.
No other questions, then we'll, attempt to move last month's meeting minutes.
I have a question right there. There's nothing in here about the investigation, what Jason had said to make an investigation, and then you don't ever want to say, have you talked to a member? There's nothing in this meeting minutes about that. So why is there not something in it? Because we had a very lengthy discussion on that.
We did talk through it.
But why wouldn't we put it in the meeting minutes?
So I don't know. I'd like to hear from other people's suggestions, but are we treating this as an open item now, or are we treating it as confidential?
Obviously, it was open. Jason called me out when 2 months ago about
because there was a beginning of why that became
an
a,
investigation.
so. We can, I guess, add something there. What do you want?
Was there any, I never got any answer of whether I was right or wrong. What went on? I do know one thing, is that I was never told that this was a confidential meeting. And if you made it a confidential meeting, did you ask other board members to be confidential?
I think if we go back to the original discussion when we had legal counsel here, that the whole issue was to remain confidential.
It
That was my interpretation,
That was not confidential.
but that it was confidential.
But I did not get that information, even if it went back.
I'm saying it's interpreted at the time when we went through it.
I think he specifically said that all matters regarding that were to be remain confidential so they could do a fair and thorough investigation. Listen, and then the September meeting minutes, it says right here that we moved to investigate what director leaked the confidential minutes of the August
The
1st
meeting
meeting.
itself, when we got done voting, there was nothing said about it being a confidential. That was August 1st, right? Phone.
It was August 1st. That was all,
Nothing
that was
said.
all part, there was something said, as Jason just mentioned, when we had legal counsel here.
Meeting, but not that meeting. Not August 1st meeting. There was nothing between that one and the next meeting.
It's all part of this, the same,
It's not confidential now, so it doesn't matter.
Well, then put it in the meeting minutes. It's not confidential.
but that's what I'm saying. What is it you want to put in there?
We'll just put in there that the investigation was not confidential and that the members have information or should.
The investigation absolutely is confidential, has to be. But you're saying that how we went about determining we're gonna have an investigation in the August 1st meeting should not be, correct? The investigation is
It's an
obviously confidential.
investigation.
That's obviously confidential.
Yes, but I'm saying is that the meeting itself was not deemed confidential on August 1st. No one ever told me. If it did, you might have told someone else, but nobody ever told me about it.
I said it was interpreted from the get-go.
Hey, the minutes were published on the internet. Who cares?
But you did at the time. You got upset at this. So,
Yeah.
okay, you got upset.
You cared what went on then, but now you don't care about it.
It's too late.
Well, the meeting minutes need to be published in the magazine. It states all meeting minutes, once approved, will be published. Decatur County RAMC's website. I believe that's what it says.
It does.
And we put those meeting minutes every month in the magazine.
But the way that we went through training, guys.
No, but this is a board issue.
But Garrison did say,
Yes,
everything's supposed to be.
Well, let's go back to the closed action item. Can you send us a response on the closed action item, Steve? It shows closed action items of the investigation, but I've never got a response.
It showed, I think, I thought I mentioned it during the last board meeting that, there was a research that was done and nothing was found.
So nothing was found, no confidential information was shared, correct?
Well, it was something.
Well, obviously we shared because only the directors had the information. It was on the internet.
There's no proof.
But he did not.
There was nothing found
Hey,
from the
Jason,
IT.
iPad sent that.
So you said the IT iPad didn't find anything.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I hadn't heard that.
So Carl, you're asking for some additional verbiage to put into the meeting minutes to support what we talked about last. That you want your name on there that says you went ahead and supplied the concerned members information related to the investigation.
That was non-confidential meeting minutes is what
That's what
shared.
I'm asking, that was not, if you're gonna say that, then you got to say that it was non.
You asked for something to be input, but at this point in time, at the point in time.
It was not confidential at the point in time. Because I did not receive anything saying after that meeting was over with.
Tell me what you want to put, and then we'll vote on whether we're gonna go ahead and put it on there. So,
and we're at. We talk about it somewhere,
Are we going to publish the meeting minutes?
For me,
Are we going to publish the meeting minutes?
I'll ask the board if that's what we should do. Again, we had direction from legal counsel that.
Don't you ask him?
I'm fine with that.
Where's he at? Where's the results
I'm
of
gonna,
this investigation?
I'm gonna bring that up later, or we can talk about it.
How many months has this been going
We
on?
can go back to the presentation that we all got when Brian Garrison's come in for the last 4 years that talks about anything around a whistleblower complaint is confidential. Meeting minutes are not, until the investigation is closed, those meeting minutes are
So
confidential.
going backwards, that should have been an executive session, but don't we have to come out of executive session to have a formal vote? Am I incorrect on that?
Have a formal vote.
To have a formal vote, we cannot be in executive session. I mean, I'm not saying comments have to be, but executive session, we can't do a vote.
And that's all.
And it just says special meeting. It doesn't say executive session on the meetings.
But again, we come out, but that's still, in my mind, that still needs to remain confidential.
I think Jason.
The vote itself,
Let's,
The
let's
vote
ask,
can't be confidential.
Ask Brian.
let's ask.
Yeah.
They're all playing lawyer here. None of us are lawyers. Ask Brian. That's what we pay him for. Easy.
Everybody okay with that? I'll ask Brian if we want to include it. The question becomes, what do we do now with the minutes? Because Carl asked for information to be presented. Do we table that until?
Nothing until you hear back from Garrison.
Okay,
And I'm fine with that also.
so we won't vote on minutes, approving the minutes.
It's gonna delay them being published.
Or we won't allow to
Yeah, I'll put something out that just says, and the red line that's in the magazine that says all board meeting minutes will be published. That was us communicating to the members that meeting minutes will be published as approved. The reason Steve talked about not publishing those is because it was around, wasn't it?
Is there a policy that supports that?
No, I don't think so.
So publishing of the minutes would be at the board's discretion, and if there's not a policy dictating it, correct?
Sounds logical. Everybody's okay with us tabling this at this point then? I don't think we have a lot of options. All right, which takes us into the next topic, capital credit retirement amounts.
I've got a question right off the bat on the history. Have we not allocated capital credits for 2021? We haven't?
No, because we can't, because you guys chose to change the audit year. So we cannot allocate those until next year. Because you changed the cycle of the audit. You have to hold off and wait. So those cannot be allocated. So we'll be doing 2 years at one time after you get, when are they coming for the final?
January, February.
So,
Report.
and I not asked, when would we have been told that?
We talked
I
about.
think we talked about it.
Oh, yeah.
When we talked about changing, that was one of the things that we
Capital
said.
credits would not be
Be
allocated.
allocated. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Whatsoever.
not at all.
Just until they're audited.
Until they're audited, and as soon as that audit comes back as clean and approved, then we can allocate them,
Now we can go ahead and allocate some to 2021.
not until it's approved, so not until January, February. Then we'll do the whole year. We'll do actually 2021 and 2022. So we'll do
And then
2
it'll be
years.
on a year's cycle.
Yeah, then we'll be back to normal, and then we'll do it every single year like we usually do.
2021 won't be a zero after this is all said.
Correct. Yep. I know, it throws me off too, because I'm like, June, I was ready to allocate, and I'm like, oh, I
But
can't.
they've effectively audited 21 already, but they haven't released a full report.
Right.
I mean, they came out, did their field work and stuff, so I mean, they've looked at it, but it costs extra money to do a report so it's cheaper. Wait.
So on the REMC, so our allocation, all we did here was basically, it's on a 25-year because that was kind of the recommendation that came out of that. So we want to change the 25-year, it's going to change this number, but essentially all we do is what we've done every other year, which is, it is 25-year, am I right? Yes. So you go back and you look at, here's everything that has not been retired. You divide that number by whatever cycle you want to be on. It gives you that number, which is 668, 245. And then we went back to, because your policy states you got to pay at least 50% of your oldest. So we went back and did 95, 96, And then that 2003, I think, is one of the years that we completely
Wiped out, yeah.
So did I miss something that said that we were gonna definitely do 25 years?
No decision has been made
Pick the
yet.
number, because that was,
So wouldn't we still be on a 30-year cycle until that's made?
This is just a recommendation.
No, that isn't.
because I think we talked, we had this discussion.
Yes.
Sticking with the 30 and high fives were ahead of schedule, we're in a 28 year instead of 30.
Okay.
I'd like to see the 30-year number personally. But
I
that
think
just,
really like on a 27, I don't think it really is.
it's between 27
Yeah.
and 28.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe we could do the calculation right now. Isn't there a total on here?
You mean from the,
Accumulated, so you take that 16,706 and divide by 30? That's it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a huge difference either way. It's like,
Okay,
it's less than $100,000.
let's just find out.
Let's do it that way we can get the resolution.
Yeah.
I said 16, it's 10, oh no, it's 16,706.
Unless it means that there's previous.
24 divided by 30, it's 556, 870.
$100,000.
112.
20%.
What was that number again, Jason?
556, 871.
You're right.
Yeah.
556.
871 would be 30 years.
So then 489 would go to 90. We want you to keep that the same. I guess I could put this up like.
That's their total, isn't it? Total remains.
You check the election. You have your service.
95 is 489.
Yeah, so that's the total.
96 is one,
Full years. Yes.
489, 127, same.
Yes.
So do you still want to go 489, 652 and clear out 95?
Yeah.
And then where do you want to go?
At least 57 to 18.
Just take it off 96.
2003, that's all that's left on there is that 91.
Yeah,
So that's not gonna hurt
You're just
anybody.
thinking 67 what?
67 to 18. I don't know, it might have a rounding problem there. But see what that is.
So what's the requirement of the oldest year we have to pay?
I'm sorry?
Once the amount's determined, the oldest year we have to pay, it has to represent
50%.
50% of the allocate. Okay. I have a question on the history chart. Are the colors significant of anything? I mean,
Yeah.
there's all, go ahead.
The chart, so Hoosier Energies is red and then RMC's is the blue. Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
I'm talking about on the history chart. I'm seeing numbers in blue, numbers in green, numbers in, is there any, I looked at that and trying to figure out if there's any significance of the font to indicate anything, or if that's just a,
That's just, I don't know.
okay.
Master to see.
Okay. And then at the very bottom, below the 20, 25 and 30-year cycle, the very bottom number, I'm not sure I understand what that represents.
See, thanks, Brett.
Your number matched that.
You might have to spit that number.
30-year cycle number.
No.
Think about these down here, the 20-year, the 25-year.
Oh, you're asking
think
about
it's
the
taking that
cycle? It's
total
taking the
divided by
total, dividing it
20.
out to say
Yeah.
how many dollars you have.
Yeah, but the very bottom line doesn't have a heading of after the 30-year cycle, and it's got a number there. What does that number represent?
I think that's the difference between 25 and 30, isn't it?
It's not, but
No.
it's close, but it's not.
And then where's the 15,581 coming from?
That might have been a prior year too.
So that may not be.
That may not be any accurate. It should be.
Well, 15,581 plus 2020's margin gets you to the 16,706. So that just hasn't been updated, right? 15,581, 231, 252. It's 1680.
I'll ask her what the color difference is, if there is any meaning there.
I don't know if there's significance or not.
I don't know.
I mean, it just looks like the ones that are colored are the ones that have been paid in full.
Purple is retired completely.
But the font colors where I'm seeing blue and I'm seeing green.
I don't know. I'll ask her.
When I call Jenny and I say, can you give me the number that I need to put in here? She gets,
And then that bottom line, I'd also like to know what that one number is. Or if that needs to be updated or whatever the case.
103, 480.
488.
We'll find out.
So Matt, before we leave this, 16706 is definitely the accumulated total.
I believe so.
Okay.
I,
And we just simply divide that by 30 to get 556,871.
yes.
Okay.
So do we need a motion now?
Let's verify the numbers.
You guys good with that? Can you see that?
After the change, we just went back to 95 and 96. Yeah.
Amount that we're paying out.
We want to change that total up there. We're adding,
Right.
yeah. And below as well.
Yes.
are we doing any Hoosier?
They have to talk.
That's a second.
They put it.
Yeah, so if we need a,
I'll make the motion.
we need a motion.
The numbers that were altered.
Okay. With the revisions, we have this.
Make a second.
10 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say. All right, let's bring this next.
Question there. Hoosiers capital credits account. 2021. It's on the same logic.
Nothing is getting allocated.
That needs to be deleted and the number needs to be reduced.
Yeah, because nothing is getting allocated yet.
But this number comes from a different place.
Yes.
This is actual money that we receive, retirement money we receive from Hoosier during the calendar year.
Correct.
But it hasn't been allocated.
Correct.
Yeah.
But this we did get. This is what we've been talking
But didn't
about.
we pay some of it back already?
Not this calendar year.
Last
Here was
time.
like a COVID, okay, deal, okay.
Yeah, we haven't done anything with the new.
And, well,
So this is essentially a pass, I mean, this is that 668, 512 is a pass through of what we expect, well, what we know we're getting for next year.
well, asterisk that. That's not a done deal until RUS approves the special retirement. I don't want to get hung on that.
Usually that's what the act is about.
No, not up here. He said, this is what we're expecting to get. That's what we're expecting to get.
Right.
It's not what we are getting.
So part of it, we always get, all right? The board of directors at Hoosier is accelerating retirement of capital credits because they average it in a 10-year time frame. The next 10 years, their retirement goes way up. They're gonna have to pay a lot more money. So they're starting to pay some of that now to ease their cash flow later on and to help everybody out during this inflationary period and pandemic, whatever. So every year, that other 300 whatever thousand that we get, the board has to approve over there, then it has to go to RUS for approval. And then RUS tells Hoosier, yes, you may pay this money out. It's not gonna put you in a bind.
Thank you.
Jason, you want to say something?
So one to ask Matt about the total for 22.
So we did pull this today. There is money that we have received in 22 that we haven't returned yet. Now, some of it was money that typically would have came in, I believe, 23, right? It was
It's
accelerated.
an accelerated payment, so it represents half of that number right there.
That we already got this year.
Okay.
So.
we'll still be on
Get that
track.
next year. And then there's. So our expected in 23, we expect to get about 600 and some odd thousand.
This exact number right
Yeah.
there.
But we've already gotten half of that,
Yes.
just so we're clear. Clear as mud.
Clear. Now with the Hoosier money, we haven't, we didn't pay back what we look at, say 19, 20 and 21. We
Right.
kept that internally. And then 22, we paid all but the special, big special, I believe.
Okay.
So in this case, why wouldn't we just pay back all of 93? 93.
What's left, Jeff, after that, you know?
1.1 million. We're not even paying half of what's left. So why divide that over 4 years? I'm just asking, what was your logic?
I don't think there was any logic, Jeff. I think it's just.
So let's just pay a full amount of the oldest year.
I think the logic is that you pulled some of it farther forward so more members would get something, I think was the idea. We just pick stuff out of.
We've talked about that in theory before, but we never said anything hard in the past.
I mean, what we put up here is not stuff we pick out of thin air. It's just to give
Well,
an
like
idea that you guys pick whatever.
asterisks, with the asterisks, like these off that.
This year.
Is that what it is?
See,
Brought some of it.
I'm okay with that. That sticks with what our rule is.
amount spread.
50%.
Yes, the old.
Otherwise, why are the asterisks?
So how about that? Did you get that? Can we do half of the oldest year, the 93? So it'd be 550,000 roughly. I can do the math. Put the rest on one of these more current years.
Yeah, I mean,
What's the exact number? 550?
I'm getting it.
I mean,
So 551, 787.
So the reason I think she picked those other years is because those,
86.
those years, it makes them zero. The ones that have asterisks.
787, Brett. I'm not sure. Jason, what was that number? 551 what?
That's why she did pick the other.
Yeah, it's
She was
just-
trying to just clear those days or those years. So if you spend some money in 97, 2001, 2 and 3, it clears those years completely out.
787.
But it doesn't
I mean,
matter.
it doesn't make any difference. It's as broad as it is.
Yeah,
It is.
so you got 116 left.
This is where we're at now.
So do you want to go 97?
Those are all.
Pay that year.
But that'll still, with what remains, that'll still clear it, correct?
Yeah, still.
Yeah,
Then you have us, we'll do the rest on the 2003 or something.
how much is the, get rid of that?
Half of the oldest.
Half,
How much you got left?
Jason, you got the calculator.
We paying off. 97 was 84,388. Now left you 32,000.
Why wouldn't you just go ahead and take that off of 93? Because that's gonna be a minute number. No members. Add the 32,000 up there. Yeah. Makes it,
Tell me what you want up there.
right,
Add the difference to that amount.
84, 124.
584, 124.
84, 388. That pays that year off, and that gets 668, 512.
Six.
No.
You had it correct.
84, 388. Got it.
I go all these places and eventually I get up last year.
584.
Never find that file.
Okay, now we've added it, so to make it 660.
Retirements last year.
And when they
So
put
he just said it'd pay that
that
year off.
asterisk.
No, it doesn't.
If they pays up 97.
Pays off.
Pays off.
Is that an asterisk then?
It does not.
I can barely see. 84, 388, but all is less than 97.
Let's go.
Which chart are you looking at to say that that's gonna pay off 97? 'Cause
That's the middle one, the Hoosier one right here. This
to
column.
the right on the history,
First is Decatur County.
you're on the
Second,
history.
second column is Hoosier.
I have 246.9 for 1990.
Ninety-seven.
That's your
84, 388.
free tire.
Right, Brian, go back to the middle,
Oh.
back to the middle of the spreadsheet.
Middle is what's allocated, not the.
Grid lines would be helpful.
Yeah.
I've never known this sheet.
Reinsert grid lines maybe.
Seriously.
No, it's a terrible file.
Just grid lines would help.
I'd suggest a whole.
I like the colors. It makes something.
That's what I said. We could look at, there's too many. I make a motion, Paul did that, so it's very hard to.
Okay, ready, let's everybody take a quick look. We got a motion on the floor of going with this.
Numbers don't match up in the top paragraph at the bottom.
I'll second. What's your question? Blake?
No, it's the number, I was just looking, the numbers match up. We didn't have to change anything.
Okay, so Jeff made the motion. Who seconded?
And then Jason.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, so that's done. All right. Let's start, resolution for the annual meeting. It's up to about the.
My only question would be, should we designate the 7:30 PM would be held at the RMC, not at the fairgrounds? Should that be indicated for the resolution?
Wouldn't hurt.
Right, I'm correct to that. We're coming back to the RMC, the meeting.
Yes.
June 16th.
Yeah.
We have a small revision there.
Thank you. Just the and itself has to be in the resolution.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Support the resolution.
I'll make a motion, with changes.
Okay, we have a first. Wait a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same. Right, so. Next item, Brad, DO update.
All right, so this month we spent the majority of our time working on obviously the 2023 budget, cost of service study stuff. We did visit all the LMR industrial accounts, went over those options for them from a visit standpoint. We planned out our 2023 right-of-way planning. And then also obviously been interviewing for the manager of member services and communication. So that's where a lot of our time was. As far as strategic project updates, So for meter poles, so there's 85 meter poles in total. 40 of them are in staking with an average open date of 76 days. 32 of them are waiting on members with an average days of open of 113. And then there's 13 that are closed. Jim is working on basically the last 2022 stuff at this point. So making some progress, although we're waiting on a lot of members for these. If you look at a total of 85 in process, we're waiting 32 of them. And so what I mean by waiting on members is they've agreed to, okay, this is what we're going to go do. Got to go get an electrician to come in to kind of do their side of it, right? And get it green tagged, and then we would go out and do our thing. So we are making progress on that. Next project is our pole replacement program. So there's 157 to do, 90 completed. This was as of last week. DNT has put extra crews on this and believes that they can finish by the end of the year. MISO, so this was priority number 5 project, MISO GenMax. So we met with our industrial accounts to introduce the LMR program through User. We also created a load curtailment process if we were in a MISO emergency that's approved and in our system. So this project is completely closed. Construction work plan. So I'm going to go through a couple of updates. One, so for our industry primary metering, this was some changes that we're doing over by Center Sub. This project will be completed in 2023 basically the member came back to us and said that they would not be able to take an outage until Easter. So right now we're kind of scheduling for this to be Easter. Also, there's been material delays. So yeah, we're missing one piece of that project, but we've been waiting on many others. So I do have that project is off track. It will be something, obviously, you heard me say during the Easter season is when we plan on doing that or implementing it. The Washington underground feeder replacements, that's the circuits that come out underground over here. I don't know if y'all heard or not, we had an outage on that. It blew a hole on one of the phases. We were able to backfeed that for the time being. So the project started on November 21st. So I believe that was the beginning part of last week. And we plan to complete this by the end of the year. So if you see all the equipment and flags and all that stuff, that's what that project is.
You have the exploded wire in your office.
And if anybody'd like to see the exploded wire, it's been in there since the 70s. It's sort of interesting. Tree refusals. So we have 50 open. 5 are in Pat and I's where they're been escalated to staff. 30 are open in the meter department. So that means Chris and Chad are working those. 9 open in staking. So that means that the staking engineer is looking to see, could we go underground? Could be something where the members call us and say, hey, what would I have to pay to go underground? That goes to staking. They design it out and get a cost over. And then 6 open for the tree contractor. So again, we're making some pretty good progress in the tree refusals also. And Jenny has been and still is sort of managing those two, the meter pole replacement and the tree refusals. Next is priority 14, which is broadband. So the member survey was started on the 25th of October. It will end on the 30th, which is Wednesday. The number as of last week was 1342. So 1,342 respondents back. So if you know anybody that hasn't responded, may want to put that. We got roughly how many members? 60.
A little over 6,000.
6,000. Still, that's a huge turnout for a member survey like this.
Do you have any idea how many people have?
We've gotten tons of phone calls.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be,
Encouraging.
it's gonna be very well attended.
Where's the link? Because people have been asking. They
Yes, I had
survey.
You'd asked me about it and I haven't had time to research it.
So
yet.
you just sent
He
that out.
gave it to me, so I have it.
But has it been filtered out then to
Not yet.
Oh, well,
It will be.
okay.
It will be. Yeah, there's it'll be it'll be this Friday.
Is when we're doing
We're
the,
doing an actual post that's the email blast, and it'll have the link inside of it that they can just click on, inside of there. And then we'll have to post it on Facebook and all the,
so we're doing an email blast with the town hall information as far as how to link to it.
That's not what I'm asking.
Oh,
People have been asking how to still complete the survey. Is
they
it
can
still
send
on?
it on Facebook. Yeah, if they click on that link through Facebook,
Okay, that's
it'll still
still,
get there.
Or they would have got the email blast also that they can link to.
Either way.
Or I think it's in the news also on our website. I think it's all three. So our town hall is scheduled for December 7th. It's at 6 PM. That's next Wednesday. I would encourage it. So I'm going to send you guys the presentation prior so you know kind of what we're presenting. But the agenda really is to go over kind of what we've done, right? So this is from 2016. We did a survey through Hoosier Energy that showed that there wasn't a huge need at that point in time, all the way till kind of what we're doing today. We're going to go through that timeline. Then we're going to talk about the feasibility, kind of what the feasibility told us at that point in time. And then the other part of it is we kind of wanted to open it up and get testimonials from folks that want to come in. So that is kind of the set agenda at this point. We're putting together a presentation. The whole main point of this is to communicate, here's what we've done in the broadband space as Decatur County REMC from 2016 until today. And kind of go through, we're ending on the fact that we're waiting on BEAD grants and this survey data to sort of move forward. But we know the BEAD grants aren't going to be out until sometime for Q1 is what they're saying now.
I think it's gonna be later than that.
And it could be better than that, yeah.
After our meeting 2 weeks ago, I think it's gonna be later than that.
So any questions on that? I'm hoping we'll have the presentation out by end of this week is the idea.
How many chairs are you gonna have set up?
I was gonna say, is this room gonna be big enough?
Let's have as many as we can.
Okay.
For the code.
And then yeah.
And then the last one was just the ladies' restroom remodels.
Very nice.
Complete.
Did you go in there?
I did.
It's so nice.
It is very nice. Carpet, not having carpet in a restroom is very nice. Spoken from a true girl. It's very nicely done.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Mhm.
Keep going.
Who did the work, Chris?
Oh my gosh, what was his?
Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
That's really all I wanted to know.
No,
That wasn't.
but he's a member, he wasn't forced. He's a member of ours,
Who did the decorating?
the girls,
Very nice.
yes. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? I don't know, he outsourced everything. He was kind of like the general contractor and like lots of other people came in. and-
Local?
Yeah, yeah, he's a member of ours. His name is gone out of my memory.
I told all the ladies I was going to change it from women's to men's sign on it. And so the other day they put a sign on there that said, not Brett's. Can you keep going?
Sure.
All right, so kind of company metrics update. So October, the median temperature was about 9% below our 5-year average. And you can see it there on the screen, which made our purchase energy, KWH from Hoosier, well below our 5-year average, about 9% lower than our 5-year average. And then demand also about 7.2 below our 5-year average. If you look at so this is KWH sold compared to variance to our budget. So we went from a total of being 2.64 under budget to minus 3.18 under budget this last month. So we lost a little ground in October. One thing I wanted to point out, because if you look at the gross margins and kind of our financials for the last month or so, they look a little different. And I just wanted to show the point. You can see it in the gross margin, and then you can see down below our power cost tracker. So our tracker tries to smooth the quarterly tracker from Hoosier. it actually works really, really well, but the problem is it does some smoothing, right? So you can tell right here on this lower one that we're catching up, right, to where Hoosier's at. So it smooths it, it does what we want it to do. The problem is it affects our gross margins month over month. So no,
Tracks and it's behind.
it tracks and it's behind. That's a great way to put it. Which is intended to do, that was by design. So anyways, I just wanted to mention it, because if you look at the gross margins month over month, I would be asking major questions, but when we dig into this, it's really attributed to the power cost tracker. And then you can see down below here where they're predicting their tracker to be and kind of where we're at compared to it.
So I would fully expect us to have catch up all first half of next year.
So that's going to be a difficult look in the budget too.
More on that coming later in the meeting.
But it does make it for budget, 2023's budget is hard to try to budget for those amounts and for your gross margin, even though we don't necessarily budget because it's a pass through, but we know cash flow standpoint, it does affect it because it's behind. And you can see the ramp up we're going to have in the tracker come Q1 and Q2. And I know Jason's going to talk a little bit about that, but it's going to put pressure on cash a bit at the beginning of the year. From a company, so daily, it's been really pretty quiet. We've had some outages, but nothing majorly. Yeah, no, I shouldn't say anything. Any questions from me about the report, the metrics, or any projects?
So you talked about a little bit, the margin number. So these are through the end of October. Where do you think that this is likely we're going to end up for 22? Do you have a feel for that at this point?
I think probably my best gut feeling is we'll be in that 200 to 300,000.
So
We'll make up a little bit on our tracker for November and December, but we're going to be under budget for the year.
you're about, what, 300 under right now, what you thought you'd be?
We're 227 under gross margins.
227.
So
So that's not going to really get any better.
It's going to get worse. It's going to get majorly worse. That's why I'm
it'll
saying
get worse next year.
Q1 is
It's
going
going
to
to
be,
stay.
I'm talking about margins through the end of 22.
Yeah, it'll improve, I think, a little bit for the end of the year. Fine.
from a gross margin standpoint, because we're getting above where theirs is at and we're catching up. So you're right, it will.
It'll improve some, but it's not going to be near as shattering.
But then with sales down below budget too, you lost
You can
almost.
see in October, it did come back $40,000. The current month, when you get the finance. I do have two answers to some of the questions from earlier, though. It was polls, what we got from UUS. And your question, the 103 means nothing at the bottom.
Thank you.
It's been in there for several years. It relates to something 4 or 5 years ago.
Anything else from Brett? Matt, you're up next.
First, to start with the balance sheet. In general, there's not a huge amount of change to the balance sheet most months. You guys would have seen the notes I made on one. We spent more cash because we're building a lot of plant. Our net plant is up almost $5 million for the year. In general, I'd say that's really the big thing that's occurred for the year. I mean, everything else is pretty much, our debt has increased because we borrowed money. Outside of that, everything else is pretty much stays about the same year in, year out. I have come together. Any questions on the balance sheet? Next is the income statement. As you can see there in the current month in the far right, we did start to make back some of our tractor is where that, we're 44,000 positive there. We're gonna make back some of that difference between the revenue and the power costs. So it should stay positive for at least the next couple of months. Controllable expenses, we're ahead on right away still. And maintenance will end the year over because we did have the outages earlier in the year. Everything else in general will probably be either right around budget or well under. As far as other stuff there's not really, I mean, does anybody have any questions on any of the other stuff? Or any of the stuff in any of those categories? Next is the cash flow. We ended the month with the $1,064,000 in cash. Went down another 400,000. Again, most of that wound up going to 269 of that went in the plant and paid on our debt last month, 80,000, 65,000 in interest, and that's pretty much where it went. So cash decreased $563,000 for the month. Any questions on that? Next, we have our plant. We're running ahead of where we expect it to be. Go to the next page, you'll have we closed 35. Skip the page. No, the other page is in there, okay. We closed 35 work orders, 6 new constructions, 3 retirements, 26 system improvements. We added 8 new services in October. We're up to 61 for the year. We replaced 114 poles in October, 5 were wrecks and 109 were system improvements or contractor replacements. Installed or replaced 13 security lights. We purchased 3 transformers and 0 meters last month. And then next we have our plant investments. Distribution work plan projects is the top 2. The second one is the ones that carried over from the prior year. New services, meters and transformers, we're over budget there because we made a decision, board approved to purchase a bunch of extra transformers to get some inventory. Service upgrades is over. And there's pole replacements, and I guess in general, is there any questions on anything here?
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
On the new service overhead and underground, in 2021, we averaged $5,317 per service. We're over double that this year. Could you please provide additional information on those 61 new services, how the financials break out? Because we're at $11,212 on average. And per rules, we're only supposed to be contributing $1,600 per residential service. So that's telling me we've had some astronomical commercial services, correct?
Yeah, one approved.
That was last year.
The work
Got it in this year though, for Mr.
I thought it was also in last year's. Could you, well, please provide that information.
Well, let's be more specific. I think we need it as a board. What specific information do you?
I want to know why our new services has doubled.
Okay.
And are we actually following our Rule 25? And I would like to have a breakout of those 61 new services. If 50 of them are residential or 55 are residential, there should be $1,600 allotted and there should be a balance of what the members pay.
I mean, the bulk of it is out here on out here on Veterans Way. I mean, that.
But we didn't approve that kind of money.
You took out all overhead and labor.
Yeah, but I think there was a specific amount that we approved. I believe I'll have to go back and look. So please provide that if you would.
That's the bulk of it. I do know that.
Okay. The second item, are we clear then on what I'm asking?
I think you just want to break out of the 61 new services as far as like how many are residential, how many commercial.
And then it break out the commercial and what the amounts are for each. We know what the residential is,
1,600.
but the three-phase, they're supposed to be picking up all but 30 months.
So the line extension true ups.
Is that under new services or is that under something different?
Oh, that should be.
So then that should be however many commercial installations or upgrades we've done. Well, it shouldn't be upgrades. That's different. This is new
Their
service.
subdivision that was put in was a large chunk of money too. But
Then put that in.
I think we can break it out.
I mean, I think there's like 4 things that make up.
And that would be perfect. That would give me, in my
I mean,
mind,
are you fine with, if I give you the big ones that I think made up the difference?
in the amounts and in the amounts that they pay.
Okay, because I think there's about 5 of them.
Okay.
That
That would be great.
answers your question.
But on the 1,600 too, so remember, they get a credit of 1,600, but anything that would cost them over that, they pay for. So
Other than transformers, we supply the transformers.
that's because that's in rates, yeah.
So the extension that we talked about, that we forewent the overheads. Is that showing up in that 60?
Yes, it is. That's the majority of
Yes,
it.
we're picking that up. The member ain't paying for that instead of, the rest of the members are paying for that instead of the individual member that put the service with.
Correct. And you also approved a new policy to give, I'm losing
Or the policy on replacement of aged facilities.
age facilities credit.
So there's,
That impacts that number. Now, I would say probably the entire difference between what you're talking about is 2 things. Age facility credits that we are now paying for that we haven't in the past, and that one line extension.
And you can't really take that amount and divide it by the total number of services. It's
No.
going to skew your
No,
numbers.
it is, but this will give me, by you answering or providing the information I'm wanting, it'll let me know where that money's going.
It's those 2 things.
plus the plan
Oh, yeah.
years ago, that a big chunk too.
And we can break it up.
On the 2021 pole replacement, we budgeted 381,000. We've spent 456,000. There's at least 3 poles that haven't been replaced yet. So how do you know when these projects are done?
So 2021, there's 3 poles that you're saying aren't replaced?
Yeah, there's 2 on the top of Rossburg Hill. There's 1 at the intersection of Barishell and Northeast 80.
Barishell and Northeast 80 is a rejected pole, correct?
Pardon?
It's not a rejected.
It is.
If you give me those locations, I'll look at them.
I just did.
Say it again. Barishell,
Barishell and Northeast of 80, there's a 3-phase pole that's still red tagged. And then there's 2 single-phase poles going back to the house just north of the cemetery. Those are those are obvious. I don't know how many more there might be. But how do you know when we're done?
when the,
Matt?
How do I?
Matt's not gonna know that.
I realistically, the invoice comes in to engineering and the operations department and the lineman. There's usually, Brian will either inspect or Chris or Brian or Brent, and they approve the invoice. And if they approve the invoice,
You pay it. But
Pay it.
who's going out and verifying on the circuits that were red tag poles that are all replaced? If I can see these on main roads driving by, I'm guessing there's probably additional. Maybe there's not.
So you want me to go through the process?
No, I'm good. Just please get those poles replaced.
So 2021, Barishell Lane 80, and then the cemetery, I didn't catch exactly where at.
Rothberg,
surprised I didn't see those driving
just
past
at
there.
the left as you're going north to that house.
Okay. I don't look at those. I always look at our 3-phase line.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll dig into those 3.
Anything else? Okay. Matt, you want to talk about the financial thing?
Yeah, I think you put that out there today, right? Out there today. mean, in general, I guess. Tell me what you want it to look like. Anything tell me what numbers to use, because I pretty much, I plugged in what I've kind of presented the past few months, and I guess I think there was agreement on 30 years for capital credits. Is that fair to say? I mean, so that one I can punch in and go forward with that.
Here, you're talking about right here, right?
Yes. So that can be changed. That there, I put in, because we haven't always done that. That was my thoughts. What's you guys' thoughts on Hoosier capital credits? I mean, I know there's an argument to be made from what I've talked to our nearby co-ops. Some of them have said they keep it all, others have said they return it all. So I figured 50 to 100 gave us some leeway, but we have had years where we return zero. So, I mean, what does the board want to do with that? Because I mean, I think it's all over the place from what I've gathered, and you probably could speak to that with your Hoosier board. Well, they're all over the place too, right?
I mean, you gotta be real careful. And I'm not talking about any particular distribution system, but you need to be really careful about this being part of your operating budget. You know what I mean? I don't feel comfortable. I don't even know if I feel comfortable defining it in this at all. I would like to see it all returned. It's members' money. They should get it back, in my opinion.
Right.
But I also understand there are circumstances in which you may need to.
So Jason, that's why, so we put in here this 4-3. So 4-3 gives you as a board the ability to say, okay, our margins this year aren't gonna allow us to do it, right? So all you're doing here is telling us, hey, in general, this is what we want to
This is
see.
the target of what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you guys ultimately will say, just like the years, you're gonna pick which years it is. I mean,
And the amount, but what we budget for in a 10-year forecast needs to come somewhere.
Why would that need to be in a forecast?
when I go to the CFC forecast that they have, that'll shift every year based off how much. If
Gotta have a number to
to
plug in there.
If we're not gonna return 100%, it could shift what we'll have hugely. If we say we're always gonna return 100%, then yes, it doesn't matter.
I'm not willing to say that. I'm willing to give the money back. It's just, we need to be able to choose when and how much.
But that's what 4-3 does for us, right? Correct?
Yes, but it's still putting in a number, 50 to 100%.
And that can be 0 to 100% too.
But he's got, when he does that forecast, he has to have something.
Right, he's gonna put in something.
Yeah, just give me
Can
a
you
target.
put 0 to 100%?
We can put that there, but I mean, it'll shift that forecast. I guess what I'm asking for there is what number do you want me to put in that forecast? I guess is what I'm.
Historically, has our REMC ever kept Hoosier Energy's credits in the past?
We did.
Yeah, 19, 20, and 21. If you look at that one chart that has the red and the blue bars, you can see the years that there's no red bar, we kept all of it. Or there was none.
No, there's always been retirement. We made it part of our
Yes.
operating budget.
And that would take it to 0 to 100 then,
Yeah, it's,
based on history.
But what do you want us to target? That's what we're
Yeah.
looking for.
well, and it can always be 0 to 100. This is just the target. I mean, what is the,
Why even have it in there if you're gonna put 0 to 100?
We're not.
The board's discretion. But
Yes.
if you're forecasting
my
purposes,
forecast,
can
tell
you
me
just
what
put
they-
50% in there?
I can use whatever you want me to. I just want you to tell me.
I'd
what
like
to
for it
use.
to be higher, but I'm also a realist. Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking for is tell me what you want me to use.
Just leave it at a minimum of 50%.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Everybody okay with that? I mean,
That doesn't mean we're giving 50% back.
No,
Our goal would probably be 100, but
allow me
right.
to be able to do that and not have so many variables that it's just garbage.
4-3 gives you the discretion, 100% to do what you want to do.
So up there above the third paragraph down, the cooperative will maintain an equity ratio between 40 and 70. I mean, that's kind of like the pass through of the Hoosier Energy Credit. Isn't it a target
Yes.
versus will maintain? Will
Well-
target to maintain, kind of like, you know, not in concrete. I guess that's where
But that's up to you guys. I mean, if you,
I mean, it would be great to maintain that, but it would be a target, not will maintain it. Correct.
So you're just wanting to change the word maintain.
I think it's just like below. I mean, we target 50%, but hopefully we do 100, but there we would target to do. More simply, just the cooperative will maintain to target an equity.
is there a certain percentage though that you'd like to target or a range, or I guess that's,
The 40 to 70, but I mean, I think after the words will target to maintain after will.
So, and let's be open to what we're trying.
You make all your O tier and tier and DSC ratios with equity number 40%. That seems awfully low. I don't know if you can meet your RUS requirements at a 40% equity level. And I'm not here to debate that other than why put it in there if that's not.
I bet you probably, I mean, I haven't
If you could.
plugged that in, but there's a lot of variables that go into that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like levers, you pull, it's whack-a-mole, you put one down, another one comes up, you just decide which one you're gonna whack.
It wouldn't be pretty.
So maybe, maybe because I feel like the equity number's like been kind of this slow, steady
Fine.
with no reins around it, which I don't like. I would almost rather see that be a number not to exceed 70% or not to exceed 75% or, but does that matter for this?
I think this one doesn't refer back to a policy because we have nothing. So the whole idea of this is whatever you want this range to be dictates everything we're going to do from a management standpoint when it comes to the three things that we can pull, right? Between debt, rates, all those types of things. So I think this one,
For me, I guess I look at it as bowling, this puts the bumpers on.
Yeah.
Keeps me out of the ditch.
If I remember correctly, didn't we have a range?
We had
like
this, yeah.
3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and
I think it targeted like 50% plus or minus 5%.
I thought
Something like this.
5 or something, but yeah.
And we're at 65 now, so I figured that really kind of would defeat the purpose to say 40 to 60. So, I mean, that kind of,
So that's where we are right now, 65.
65%.
now if you take out Hoosier's equity, we're closer to 50-50. So, which is one of the things I talked about earlier. I felt like our local equity, but I do know that you guys kind of said that you didn't agree with my theory there. So that was mine. The board said no. That's why.
Well, it's not our money. It's not REMC's money. This is members' money.
Correct. Equity.
That 70% is money that you're keeping of the members to operate this place on. People need to understand that. This isn't your farm.
Why get that?
This is not our money. So that's why we don't want this just to be a slow and steady climb to 100. That would be ridiculous.
Well, I think 70 is too high, quite honestly.
Take it to the middle, we'll target to maintain equity ratio at
I have no problem
50%. I mean, it's kind of,
70 being the absolute ceiling, but I think that's way too high for us to target.
So one of the other reasons we're putting this in here, and let's just have the discussion, because if this has no value or merit, then I don't even know that we need to put anything in there. But my point is, how do you want us to run this business? If you tell me that number's got to be X, or between this number, it's going to tell me what I need to go borrow. It's going to tell us what our rates need to be. It's going to tell us all those things other than capital credit, which you've got down there, right?
But it could affect your capital credit number. That's one of the levers you could pull.
Yes, it is.
I want that number to be lower, so I'm going to pay more back.
Correct.
Yes.
You know, everyone always goes to, that means you're going to borrow more. You're going to try and get this number down. That means you're going to, no. You could also pay equity back.
But I think what you guys are setting, in other words, if this doesn't give us the ability to manage the operations to get those numbers where you want them to be, in other words, we decide what we want to essentially borrow, what we want, where we want those things to be, the levers we can pull, then it adds us no value to put.
Why don't you leave this range and just target for your planning purposes where we are now, 65%, maintain that 65%.
Everybody good with that?
So you're with what Suzanne was saying.
No, he's adding it there. It's a
Okay.
different place, but yeah,
Okay,
there you go. I think that's fair.
This number seems a little high, Dale, but when you look at the users inflates this a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would argue that we are where we should be.
And co-ops in Indiana typically have a higher equity than the rest of the country. I don't know. There's a reason for that, but I don't remember it.
It's the access to capital at some point in time. And then the other one we put in here is an O tier of 2. So what O tier means is our operations is at a minimum creating, how do they put that? Essentially, you're creating enough margin, 2 times enough of your margin to cover your.
Without, that one does not include
Correct.
capital credit retirements.
Tier
Tier,
does not.
tier includes the capital credit retirement in that number. So I think that's a lot better number to use personally.
I agree. Pick that from multiple things. One, I looked at what the KRTA showed for country, the state, and calculated about where that would bring us out. So
I'm good with that one.
Yeah. And then the other one was,
that's what we have right now. So
that's in the policy. Essentially, we just copied what was in the policy. Cost of service study every 3 to 5 years. And then this was in policy today. I feel like this kind of gets us honed in and then we can fine tune it as we go.
We had a discussion about that last budget. Wait, wasn't it proposed that we went to 2%? Then we was, okay,
but it's currently 1. So
okay.
if the policy is 1, management plan has to at least reflect that. Right now, we can't go less than 1. There is no cap on it. Let's get to the cap. All really that adds.
That's it. This other stuff's just.
So what time period is that cash calculated? Maintain a cash and cash equivalents. Because that's only $2 million. You've had more money than that at certain times. So at what point in time is that a monthly calculation? Is that the first day? Is that the period of the month when you have the least amount of cash? Like, when is that calculated?
When do you want me to calculate? I mean,
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
yeah, it makes a huge
And
difference.
what is that KRTA calculation? What's
It's gonna be the end of year.
Yeah, but that's just the KRTA, I think is just referencing how they calculate total utility plan.
Oh,
But there is a KRTA for general plan and it would be.
I guess it's your cash at the end of the month, which for us would be the highest it gets. So maybe that needs to be no more than 5% for
Yeah, because you're gonna go over that maybe.
occasionally, probably, yeah. Because our bill to Hoosier every month is more than that.
Good with that.
Just got this today. need to read it. I feel like I want to read it more in depth.
If it goes beyond that, I mean.
I guess if it goes beyond that, I'll report if we broke that plan.
That's sort of the point though.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good they're saying cap on it.
And if we go over it, it's going to require us to come and
Tell you, hey, we got a lot of cash.
We're gonna change this closely because we'll approve this.
Since this is the first time, since we just received this today, can we take some time to review what the changes?
There's no time frame to have to get this approved.
Are we okay with that?
I'd like to read it and just.
Maybe we could get it on December's agenda as well.
Well, can you redistribute it with those changes?
Yeah, it's gonna, are you?
With the updates.
I'll put Rev 2 in the call.
Whatever the case
Thank you.
is with the changes we've made.
Tell me about. Yep, update, renewal.
Review it on your time for.
All right, since we're kind of talking about financial things, I want to bring up, Jeff, you sent an email, late this afternoon. We want to incorporate that email into.
That's fine. My request for not, and this came from the training that I sat through on the 18th. Whatever day it was, 14th. The instructor said that we as directors, individual directors, allow any financial information. So I want that to start happening. If I have a request for information, I shouldn't have to explain why I want it.
I don't think that's been denied. It was maybe not on your.
There's been several times that I have not gotten answers. I just want to, going forward, to be able to do my fiduciary responsibility. If I ask a financial question, I would really like to have it answered and not be interrogated why I want the answer.
So, and I completely agree with getting the answer. Your time frame may be different than what,
I've had,
you know,
open action items that went on for a year and I never did get an answer. That's wrong, Steve. Action items should come back to the person that originated it. And they should be satisfied with the answer or get additional information until they do.
So, again, disagree with you. Oftentimes, there's communication lost in emails, and I think you have to agree with that.
No, I am not denying that, but I am stating.
Let's get things resolved here at these meetings.
I ask questions and they're not answered.
Can we get a list of those?
Well, we'll follow up on that.
I'll be glad to put a list together.
That's a fiduciary responsibility of mine. That's an accusation and I'd like to have some evidence there.
Okay, I will do it.
Are we gonna answer the rest of the questions in the email tonight?
I'm not planning on it.
Can I get my questions to the email?
Well, we're not
After
quite
that?
there yet.
This is a different email that came today.
Well, I was stated that I couldn't have the information. I
don't think you were ever stated that you were not going to get the information.
That's sure how it felt.
Okay, but where was that stated? See, Jeff, tell us where. that
Your
was
response to me said I was completely out of line. I don't think I was out of
stated.
line.
Now we're talking about a different topic now.
No, that's the email I responded to. I responded to your response to me asking.
Was that the one that John?
Pardon?
Was that the one that John Wolfram? See, again, there's these emails and we all kind of shuffle them around and then they get.
And I'm fine going forward, but I really struggle with employees can ask board of directors questions electronically, but I can't ask them. I was told at one time I could ask any question as long as all the directors were on copy. And so every director was on copy and so was Brett. I don't know why didn't his question get answered originally? We wouldn't even be in this discussion.
What question was that?
The cost of the conductor.
Materials.
That goes back to 2A.
What does?
No, it does not.
I've read over 2.8 and it has if I had any type of financial gain or anything to out of this, the information I was getting, that would be, I can understand. I, as a board member, as a director on the board, asked a specific, what's the number? And couldn't get it.
So can I bring up that email? Because the email basically said, from the email, it said a member was asking me for this data. That's what the email said.
That was
That
Suzanne.
was my email.
No, Carl or Clay also had that in his first email.
Oh.
We can go, I can pull it up if you want me to. The first email said, I am looking for this information because a member came in front of the board and asked this information. I want to make sure that that member got it.
Okay?
Right? In my mind, I'm following policy. I'm not, I can't skip policy. Policy 28 says if a member wants information, there's a process to go through that information. I have no big deal giving information, but we got to follow the right policies.
I get that. Well,
That's just what the email said, Clay.
And if I ask for the, if, you know, and I agree, everything, when I asked, I said, we had a member ask for this information was provided. I think I owed him, I think he's owed the information. So how is getting that dollar amount to a member owner of the material sitting there a violation of any policy?
So if I give a dollar amount for a certain, and you're going to see here in a minute when I go through these, why giving you a dollar amount doesn't tell the entire story. Because let's be honest, we've been on Facebook all the time about dollar amounts, that the whole story's not there. I can't just give you a dollar amount and then give a member or give someone a dollar amount without some conversation behind what that means. I mean, we've had plenty of misinformation because there wasn't discussions like there should be. That's why the policy is there. 2.8 is there so that those discussions can happen, so that if some member has a question about something, that they come in and we have a conversation about it. I post that all the time. If you have questions about stuff, come in.
But if I sit there, if we look at X amount of rolls of wire sitting there. There's so many feet on a roll, it costs us X amount of dollars per foot. What else needs to be explained? There's X amount of dollars worth of material sitting there.
Yes, so what projects do those go to? Were they, and I'm gonna go through this
That
here.
could be a total dollar amount, and then there's broke down into
There's context, that's
Need
neat.
information.
If I tell somebody we bought $500,000 worth of ACSR4, and you ask that question, what's the dollar amount for ACSR4? And I give you that dollar amount, that didn't really get you what you needed or what you were looking for, right? There needs to be a discussion of, and I'm going to go through all these questions that were asked. And you'll see that one number is not going to do a member any good unless there's discussion that's behind why that is what it is. And I think if I answer these questions, you'll understand it's way more complex than just a simple answer and a simple number. That's why 2.8 was originally put in place. That's why members are expected to fill out the form and come in and get information, is to have discussions. And it goes back to cash. I had a member call me one time and ask, well, how much cash you have on hand? What does that one number of what cash we have on hand answer anybody's questions when it comes to utility and what cash we should and have to have on hand? There are discussions. I encourage members to come in and use 2.8, come in and ask those questions. It's not a problem. And I want to go on the record to the members, because there was an accusation made here tonight that information has been withheld, and I do not believe that at all. I think that's a complete accusation, in my opinion.
When we have members call us directly and say, you're my elected director, I want to hear the information from you.
I would suggest them coming in with you in here.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest. So that
Because
we
there
can,
are a lot of communications going on out there regarding this.
Mhm.
And it's text and it's emails and it's from people who have not been associated with the RMC or involved until this past month. And they want me as their elected director to get those simple answers.
but they're not simple answers. It's a discussion that has to happen.
But you have the answers and then have them contact you for more details about it after you give those simple answers.
He's going to go over.
I'm going to go over that. In my opinion, we're making the best decisions for our membership as a whole and for our community. Sharing information with members and directors I mean, that's what we want. We want discussions, but sometimes just giving information out here and there, look how where it ends up. It ends up being on Facebook is, I'll give you a perfect example.
Can we just give the answers to the question?
Let him finish. Please be respectful of him talking.
Our construction work plan we talked about in this meeting, and the number of 11.4 was out there. It was heard, someone heard that number, 11.4, right? And the next thing I know, I get a phone call from somebody at the courthouse saying, somebody was up here saying you guys are borrowing $11.4 million and have no plan in place for what that needs to be spent on. If that would have been a discussion with the member saying, no, it's not, it's 11.4 altogether, we're borrowing 4.2%. And by the way, you can't borrow that money from the government unless you actually have a plan in place that they actually approve, then that discussion would have went totally different. And it's just, I truly believe that you have to have these discussions. Nowhere do any of us, I'm actually proud of the data and the decisions that we make. And there's always a good story, 9 times out of 10, but we gotta have those discussions. Can I go through these?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start.
These should incorporate some of these questions, I believe.
So the first question was, what is the large amount of PVC pipe at 3 and 46 to be used for? So all that inventory is not our inventory. And the only part of the inventory that is ours is for the G2 and the G3. So that's these two that were actually started last Monday. And I do not have a price on that because they just started it on 11/17. So I don't know what they're going to charge us for that because it hasn't been invoiced yet. So all the inventory that's out on their layout yard that they pay for is not ours. Is the G5 project still moving forward? This project has been put on hold and the design is shelved until the business enterprise park is closer to development. Which you'll understand a little bit more when I answer some of these other things. So the other question was, going back through how we approve these projects, and I'm going to go through the whole process of how this stuff works. So the construction work plan was approved back in 2018. The construction work plan is what we submit to the government, right, to be able to borrow funds. They're rough design ideas at that point in time. Very, very rough. I'll give you an example. ACSR. We know we've got old ACSR on our system. We have a rough idea of how many miles, but not exact. So the engineer at that point in time, our consultant basically said, we're going to put in 15 miles of this ACSR. They didn't give us the location. They didn't tell us exactly where. It was just an estimate of, we know you guys need to spend some money in this ACSR. But it didn't tell me to go to Southwest 60 and replace 2 miles here. So it's not exactly designed at that point in time at all. So then we met with the board, I think 3 different times, with a combination of me, our engineering consultant, and our operation manager. And the board would approve the overall construction work plan, which again is a very rough design idea. Then we had the loan that we had to fill out for the construction work plan. And again, the board was approving that loan funds. Then we submit a yearly CapEx budget in the budget. At that point, it's still not completely designed, but at that point in time, it is approved by the board. And then monthly CapEx, and I know we brought this up last month, monthly CapEx we report on monthly. And typically in a typical year, some projects are a little higher, some projects come in lower, and that's our job to try to manage that overall CapEx number. Unfortunately, we've been hit with inflation and lead times, inflation from 40 to 60% increase in cost. We still have the liability that we have to take care of. I think the biggest confusion of this whole thing is line extensions, service upgrades, and other uncontrollable costs. So the majority of our CapEx is made up of what I consider uncontrollable. If you look at the RMC Act from the state, there's a law that we have an obligation to serve. So the only reason we have a territory, a design or a established territory is because you have an obligation to design, to serve there. I can't tell a member that wants a new service at a certain location, sorry, we can't do that. We have an obligation under state law. Unless you guys tell me we don't have to follow state law, we have a state law obligation to serve. That means if we're doing a line extension, there's no reason to come to this board and ask for dollars for a line extension because you have to serve. You have to do it. Not to mention it's a moving target, right? So that's what, the reason I bring that up is because the G5 was tied to a potential load that was decision to be made in July with construction to go forth in Q4. If we wouldn't have ordered that in March when we ordered that material, you would not have met your obligation to serve. And in fact, I commend my team for making the risk buys. And yes, there is a process to go through that, who approves that? Pat approved it, I approved it. Matt was probably on that email, but it comes through me and Pat, all risk buy type conversations like that. We're actually having a whiteboard process that we even discuss that all the time. So no, there is an approval process on that. What's the total number ordered? So on 11/3 at 4:25, Matt sent out an email and he did say this was an estimate. He estimated the 34 reels. There was about, on average, 1,030 feet per reel at 16 plus dollars per feet. He roughly averaged it at 575. So again, on 11/3, we gave you the number of 575,000 total in that 1,000 MCM. So then if we look at actual invoices to see how well Matt had estimated that, we received 35,236 feet. That's 34 reels, and the total invoices were 579, 535, which is 1645 a foot. He said 16 plus. Pretty darn close, right? So the new G5, again, if we wouldn't have ordered that in March and that decision would have been made in July, we wouldn't have been able to serve that load, which is a state law. That G5 was 15,000 feet at 246,750. The line extension, we wouldn't have came to this board for a line extension. We have an obligation to serve that load. The industrial primary metering project was 6,000 feet. So that would equate to about 98,700. Westport meter exits were 3,000 feet. That was 49,350. Reconductoring of the G2, G3, which is the line out here, was 12,000 feet, which is 197,000. That makes up the 579, 535. Again, all these projects would not have had a chance to even do the projects if we had not ordered this stuff in March when we did. And I think that's all of the questions. That I answered.
Just tell me this is-
Matt, I have one question for you. Have there been materials ordered that you have refused to pay the invoices on?
I guess the delivery of they brought some PVC pipe the other week and we had a whiteboard discussion. We said, no, we're not gonna pay the unloading charge the invoice is for on that because they ordered stuff by mistake.
Just like 200.
And it's about 5 now, but so.
So I'm sorry.
No, you finish, please.
So you've approved or whoever's.
I don't approve the invoices. I just was on the lookout for those.
They're
Got them to
approved.
make sure that they.
You pay it.
I mean, I'm not the final approver in general. I mean, if in general, operations approves the invoice, and if they say it's good. And in that case, the whiteboard meeting worked because we had a meeting back there and we knew that, hey, be on the lookout for this. So we were.
So did you refuse any shipments? Or refuse any material being brought here?
We had a whiteboard meeting where we were talking about other underground pipe and we said, hey, don't order that. At a whiteboard meeting.
Was it not ordered? It was don't deliver that here because we don't want it.
Yeah, it was gonna be something that couldn't be used everywhere else. And it wasn't something that We didn't want to be stuck with something that we wasn't going to use right away if we weren't certain we were going to use it.
So what's the perceived problem on all this 1,000 MCM? Because it's taken a ton of our time and a ton of board time. What's the underlying problem? Like, what do we, if I can fix something, I'll fix something. I don't know what the problem is here.
It should have never been ordered without board approval, those kind of amounts.
Okay, so for line extensions, are you guys wanting to make those?
There is no line extension. That new facility we're talking about isn't in Westridge.
Is it what?
Is not in Westridge, where you were taking this new service to.
That was to split up that line. It was in conjunction with that project, for sure. In fact, we will have to do that project if that project goes. That decision was made back in March to risk buy all that.
And the board should have been involved then.
So do you guys all want to be involved in every line extension that
On
comes to?
something that large, those kind of dollars, yes. And one of the things I want to get is the information that the employees are getting, the board's getting the same information.
I don't understand what you said there.
I was told Matt shut the project down in August.
Who were you told that from?
Several people.
Who? Like who?
I'm not giving you names.
That's an accusation. Again, I want to
Did you
put
tell
on
the
record.
Did you tell the employees you were shutting this project down in August?
I don't know that I shut down project. I know I was involved in the process of stopping the order of. Thank you.
The PVC pipe.
That was just recently. This was back in August.
Well, there was PVC pipe with that one too.
Can we go into executive session, Chairman?
There's no need to go into executive session. We've already talked as board of directors. We're not giving up names because no one would guarantee it's not to be on the front page of the paper.
You are essentially saying we are upholding our fiduciary responsibility as employees. You're alleging that we are either don't care or we are.
No, I'm not. I just want the same communication going to the employees that comes to the board.
I wouldn't have brought you the MCM material information, so it wouldn't have went to the board.
Let's do
That
that.
was-
I want to go executive session for a minute.
That accusation is harassment.
Please, Melvin.
If we're going into executive session.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Why is there almost $580,000 worth of material sitting out there in conjunction that's not protected? When we have a yard sitting here that's fenced in,
Looking at me to answer that?
whoever, I don't care.
Okay, so we only have so much room in the yard and we have a layout yard out there, whereas, so DNT's our contractor. They're doing these 4 or 5 construction work plan projects we're doing. They pay for that yard out there. And they're gonna be dealing with the logistics of those reels. Because they go to these different projects. So that's what, to me, wherever they want it to make it easiest from a logistical standpoint, I'm good with.
Who's covering the insurance on it? That's over $500,000 worth of material.
Our insurance would cover something like that.
Federated probably.
Yes, Federated would definitely cover it. If there's theft of our equipment, guys, there's layout yards all over the country. If you go by Carl's house, or no, well, yeah, if you go down there where Duke's is at, Duke's huge substation, how many poles are sitting out?
You want to drag one away, go right ahead.
50, 60 probably minimum. They're 50-foot poles. There's a ton of wire out there. We can move it if you guys want
All
to.
of it.
No, you have to understand, this is. I wouldn't leave $500,000 just sitting out in the middle of nothing. That's,
Let's be honest, if somebody's going to move a 3,100.
no, it's not moving. It's the vandalizing of it. It's the decay of the, the reels that it's on, it's that, why wouldn't, that's a lot of money to me.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Okay,
That was the thought process, Clay. I'm not against if we want to do something different. That's the way that the utilities operate is they find a layout yard. When we do pole replacements, they'll do the same thing. We use the stone quarry quite a few times. There's locations all over the place. But typically from a logistical standpoint, they'll put it in one location. You guys demand you don't want to do that. I support it.
Do we or they have any security measures in place other than
Security lights.
gated layout yard?
I think the biggest scary thing is it's a 36, 35, 30, how much are those? How much are those weights? I forget.
I don't. They're heavy.
They're very, very heavy.
the way it's, the theft of it is that it's the vandalism.
Yeah.
It's a pile of money for somebody to go in there, the right person to just.
Honestly, Clay, I mean, it's not a bad, we can have that discussion in our risk mitigation, but I can tell you that every utility has layout yards. I mean, we didn't have a fence back here until 2 years ago. There wasn't even a fence that went around, so somebody could come in and break into a transformer and get a lot of copper.
Okay, what other questions do we have? Good answer. Good, because we said we're going to the next item on the agenda. And I included on this month's agenda because of the carryover from last month. I know we had some things redlined. I think they're still shown as redlined. And then I think there were some comments made to include an additional item to say changes. So we're going to find out where everybody was at. Mr. Board members.
I've been contacted by different members who listened to the audio video. They want us to increase the number to 9. They want more people to know what's going on.
Yes, verbatim on that.
Anybody else heard anything such as that?
I mean, what was the number of directors? What was the highest number of directors?
I don't know. When I was on the board, there were at one time 9.
There was 9.
And when I first started on the board. And so that person retired, we moved it to 8. It was a cost savings even along the way. I will tell you, did I answer your question?
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out, I'm assuming there's more members now than there was
Yeah, I don't know how many.
then.
Probably.
We had 9 then. And this hasn't, my thought process was, we got more members to cover and less directors.
That number of members year over year is very small.
If you don't take your IEC book and divide the number of members by the number of directors of the other co-ops in Indiana, we're heavy. We've got more than we need.
And we get a yearly, I still make, dash. There's
It was just
a
the,
number of directors.
Well, there's cost involved as well, so there's no cost.
We could always do a survey too at some point.
So what am I hearing now, that we don't even want to consider going to 7?
That's where I'm at.
is there a way? You know, when there was 9, was there 4,000 members?
I could put it
Now
pretty easy.
6,500 roughly. And
I know it wasn't that different.
That number has not changed.
That number,
I don't know, I'm just coming up.
maybe 10, 20. I can pull it pretty easy. Do you know, remember what year? Off the top of your head?
I'd say 14, but don't hold me.
I started, there was 9.
Well, I thought-
I'm trying to get an idea where.
I started.
I was thinking, yeah.
And then
As long as it's
But
an
I
odd number.
it wasn't 14.
Yeah.
As long as it's an odd number.
I can pull that data pretty easily.
I don't care, 5, 7, 9, 11, as long as it's an odd number, that would be very helpful.
So I'll ask this question because I think Eric from Jeff had said he would support the 7, but is that also based upon term limits, based upon the discussion we had last?
That's part of it, and part of it, we're into the election process.
So it'll be fine with tabling it at this point in time? We can table it,
I mean, like for a year?
yeah. Until
I was gonna say drop it.
What started in the election process exactly? The CEC committee met tonight,
Nominating committee met last 2 weeks ago.
and we're not reducing their number, so why is it?
I'm just not agreeing to do it, and I'm just one vote.
I know, but to make these changes.
Well, we polled the directors, we started this, make sure that
That's why we
support,
It was a cost just to.
we spent money on it. So we're gonna.
Well, I think we're gonna table it for a lengthy period of time because we don't have the momentum to go forward until. Jeff, are you saying after the election then? Is that what you're
I think
saying?
that would be a great time. Talk about it in July.
Let me just get a ballpark figure. Is there anybody else that would not support it until that time? Because
I don't support that. There's not a term limit on this thing.
you would support it till election time. Is that what you're saying? Then I think that answers the question. There's no sense. We'd have to have, I think, 6 votes to do it. Give it 75% though.
They have 2/3, they were 2/3 debate is.
You know, it was brought up, we spent money on it.
So you got 6.
6. Okay, so it's,
Well, we're making some assumptions here. You only have 2 no's so far.
My big thing with the term limits that I think term limits need to be on this. That was part of the discussion.
how would that be interpreted into what we're doing? What's your idea of the term limits?
We talked about it was brought up about going down to 7 directors instead of 8. And then the whole discussion needed to be to figure out term limits on.
What's the motivating factor for term limits?
To me, there's some, good, bad points to it. But it gets to be, over the years, seen a lot of good old boy stuff that I think would be.
And I don't disagree with any of that, Clay, but I guess my perspective says that through the election process, we're not voting for directors. The members are voting for directors. So if the members are not inclined to want to vote for me, they can not vote for me. And I don't have to self-impose time limits. I mean, a good old boys club, I agree. And I think there are situations where you have several people who may be on a board consistently for a long period of time. But the constituency has the ability to change that any election year. I don't know why you have to have something hard coded to say basically to the constituency, you're not doing it, so we're gonna do it for you. If they're happy with they have the wherewithal, they vote for all districts, they don't just vote for their district. If they're happy with what's in place, I don't know why.
That's my opinion. I think
What's your stipulation on term limits? Because we do have,
we haven't even discussed time, how many years.
I don't want to, I heard, one director say, we really haven't, I want to follow through with this since it was brought to the table. So I want to find out what's your limitation of going forward. So if your limitation is that we have to have term limits, what's your requirement of the term limits that we need to include in this?
That was for us to discuss
We're discussing.
timeframe, whether it be, 9, 12, I don't, how many years? I'm open for the discussion on it. I'm not gonna say.
Do you have a
it's gonna be-
suggestion?
My opinion, 9.
So is
That's
that,
my opinion.
that would be starting with the 23 election and
You know, 3 terms,
beginning with the 23 election. So if you've got
whichever one.
Seven.
Well, I'm asking, yeah. When we-
I think this needs a lot more discussion.
But I'm not gonna stop it right now. Suzanne, can I ask where you're at? I mean, is term limits, a requirement for you?
I don't totally oppose them. I just don't know what the year is because I think people being on here for years and experience is helpful. So I don't know, you know, I think the first year is kind of blur and then the second year, third. So after your first, I don't know what the term frame is. I don't know what the other RUMCs do.
Well, I was gonna, Clay, you said you were at a course here a couple weeks ago. Oh, I thought you said you were.
The course, but they nothing.
You know,
Or said something about term limits, I think is what he says.
no, that's not what I was gonna, so, how many years did you, usually you go around the room and the director says how long they've been there. Did that come
I
up?
didn't write it down, but there was guys that, let's say there's 60s. I don't know, the one, couple might have been 70, down to my age or younger.
Yeah, I
Is
don't
that
know.
what we're asking?
I wasn't asking how old they are. I was asking how many years have they been.
tenure.
I don't know. I didn't write it down, but I'm saying it was a age, that was age gap.
Jason, term limits, does it impact you?
Not particularly. I'm with Suzanne on this. I could take them or leave them. I go back all the time. I don't know that you ever stop learning about the business. I think you need, I don't know that it's fair to put a limit on it necessarily. But I'm not totally opposed to it either, I guess. I'm on the fence, but I'm not, this really, when we polled the directors about this initially, we made it very clear that term limits were not going to be part of it. Everyone agreed to go forward. So that's really all I'm talking about right now, or what I'm interested in. But I think term limits, if somebody's motivated to talk about term limits, they could be introduced at any point. But I'm okay with tabling it if that's.
Okay. Right. Outside term limits.
I kind of agree with Dale. I really think that the way we have the election process now,
All right, it doesn't sound like it's a completely done deal until next election. I'll maybe table it for another month, 2 months. Think about which requirements are with term limits, if it does actually need to be part of this discussion. All right, so we'll go to the next item, policy bylaws.
So policy 10, both of these two, 1018 and 1113, both have written in the policies that we're going to review the policy annually and I will report out on its compliance. So that's what the 2 memos are about.
And then the Roundup Trust bylaw changes. I know that did they get with you? And
So I don't meet with the bylaw trust anymore. It's one of our staff members does. So they basically had a concern that the process allows the trust to give it to an individual or a family. They did some research on it, found out it's never been done. And they didn't like the fact that, because I think one thing that board does a really good job of doing is to make sure that we spread the dollars, right? So they want to make the biggest impact with the amount of money that they have, and they try to spread these dollars evenly. And they just feel like it going to one, in other words, if it goes to like fire department, well, we all get benefits from that, right? So they felt like if it goes to one individual or one family, that wasn't good use of Decatur County REMC's members' money. And it had never been done before anyway, and they just felt like they wanted you guys to change the bylaws to get rid of the individual family. I told them I'd bring it to you,
Who again was they?
nominate, or the
The trust committee.
trust committee, yeah.
And they've agreed to it as a unit or entity.
They're the ones that brought
Yeah,
it.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So did everybody have a chance to look at it? You want to spend a little more time going through it, or are you ready to make those changes for tonight? So they've been redlined. Anybody wants to?
Everything that I seen redline basically took them, just the individual or family.
And then also the,
On their organization.
Dollar amount.
no, 2,500,
Yeah, 'cause it's
1,000,
not fine, 'cause it
1,000.
could have been 25 for an individual.
Everybody's good with that? Let's make a motion. You're making it?
I'll second.
Motion, Suzanne.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, that passed. Those changes passed. Next item are, Hoosier.
So there was a regular board meeting on, November the 14th. Highlight really for us is on page 2 of the minutes that are included in your board packet. So what's going to happen with the new Hoosier rates that are going to go into effect in April are going to be lower than the rates we're currently paying. However, the tracker is going up significantly, as we saw in the graph, first quarter 2023. So for the first quarter, members are going to be hit with the same Hoosier base rates that we've been having and an increased tracker until the base rates come down 1st of April. So what Hoosier's going to do to help members and smooth that out is they are going to take and reduce their margin of 3% that they target every year. They're going to reduce that to 2%, take that 1% and apply it to the first quarter of 2023. So then it will reduce members' bill and smooth the tracker. So 1% is pretty close to about what they're retiring in a normal retirement. So it's not a capital credit retirement. It's an immediate need to help members smooth the transition until we get to the lower base rates that will happen in April. So does that make sense?
Mitigating the,
We're mitigating members' bills for the first quarter of 23.
they're just being sensitive.
They're reducing their margin from 3% to 2% to accomplish that.
Those is the REMC.
Okay.
That was a big deal.
That's about a $6 impact per residential average. So I mean,
It is significant. So the tracker went from 16 down to 11, I think, or something like that.
yes.
So anyway, that was a big deal. That was good. We got that passed unanimously, of course. But anyway, that's the big news from Hoosier.
IC, we did have a virtual meeting. Well, there were a few people waiting to attend it. Most of us attended virtually because it was just about a 10-minute meeting. And there was a resolution that was approved for IEC to borrow money from CFC from time to time as needed to support the upgrade of the new building. So the new building was actually paid for out of an existing fund. And as additional, though there is going to be some work that needs to be done. There's some discussion, it hasn't really started yet, about building a portion of an additional spot for additional training and board meetings. But none of that's not approved. All that stuff has to be approved before these monies are pulled in from CFC. But that resolution did pass. And then they just brought up that the CEO search is still on schedule, and the February, March timeframe of 2023 is when we should have a new CEO for IEC. Other than that, so I have, the annual meeting is coming up on next Monday and Tuesday. And then we have, I know there was, also took some training tell us what you took. I know there are 4 or 5 of us in here that took it. Maybe 1 or 2 items that came out of. Great. Ryan, start with you. Okay.
Dale and I did the BLC 963, strategic technologies and their impact on the cooperative. Just talked about it was kind of all over the place, but we talked about, EVs, broadband,
Battery storage.
battery storage.
I think the one point that I came away from and the one note I made specifically was he talked about, every board has to develop a tolerance for technology. You can either be bleeding, leading, or proven, depending on how quick you want to get in, what your tolerance for potential pain is. Being conservative in nature, I'm much more for the proven. Show me that it's worked elsewhere before I'm going to leap in. But, battery storage he spent a lot of time on battery storage, about the components of what the impact that's going to have. And it's going to continue to evolve. It's not by any way, shape or form, electric vehicles. Scott Lukow is the one that did this one as well.
Oh, okay.
So.
Thumbs up? Is that
Yeah.
question? And then Clay, you and Jeff attended.
2640 financial decision making. Same instructor, I believe.
Okay, that's the CCD course.
Yes.
Okay.
That's still a day and a half.
One day.
That was the one that was a day and a half.
That's enough of data.
He's a very, very good instructor.
Yeah.
He challenges the class.
Good.
It was a good group.
So what were some things that item or two that came out of that?
Ask a lot of questions about the audit that's being conducted. It's your fiduciary responsibility to know the financial information.
Right. All right, anybody else? Anything? I think we're good there. We're ready to adjourn. There's a motion.
I'll second it.
We got everybody at one time.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. All right, meeting adjourned. We will go into executive session now.
See the on the bottom there, 12.
Sorry.
On the bottom there, the board meeting for December, we did move that to the 21st. On the agenda, it still says the 22nd.
Yes, thank you. I knew it was the 21st. Same time.
Same time, and then the budget meeting for is Thursday, the 15th, 9 to noon, and then Jason, you're just gonna let us know what we owe you.
So, is the recording off?
No. Are you guys adjourned?
Yeah, we're.
Yes.
Coming out of executive session, need a motion to support the election.
I'll make the motion to authorize Brad to execute the contract with SPS for the presented price.
First. Jason. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Back into executive session. Okay. We're coming out of executive session. We need a motion to support.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say. Motion passes. Okay, we'll go back into executive.
I'm going to come back into general.
Yeah. Okay, after the